Now. Hey folks, all right, happy Tuesday. Let me just kind of jump right into it. So I'm gonna do a few quick hellos and then we got a lot to cover. I feel like everything happens when I am not in town. And just a disclaimer, it is storming outside. For some reason, ever since I moved, whenever the weather is real funny, our live gets a little sketchy. So in the event that the live does its live thing and gets sketchy, just sit tight. I eventually figure it out. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 minutes. Sometimes I do it in like 5. So just ride with me, okay? All right. Let me just get some hellos in here real quick. What up, Nicole? What up, LeBron's Unicorn? Omega. Hey, Sarah, you. Do I think Janet is dating Maxwell? I mean, they're pretty good friends. I see them all the time at different events. So I don't know. I mean, I support it. That'd be a nice couple. I'd rather they give us a song together. I feel like they'd give a really nice, post sunset kind of song. I think we could get something really nice from them. Her blended vocals with his falsetto sound really good as far as arrangements. So maybe that's a thing. But if they're a thing, I support it too. I love Black love. Let me see. Melody, what's up? What's up? Danny Santiago. Santino, what up, Tracy? What up, Raywin? I forgot to grab my tea. I got water though, so we'll be fine. I'll get tea on the next one. Let's see. I'll do a few more, and then we got to keep it going here. Ella, my bell, what's up? That's one of the DMV people. Hi, Calvin from Tulsa. This is Miss R. Lilac. Hi, Calvin from Tulsa. Did you have fun in Jamaica? We're about to talk about it. I'm gonna start calling you Funkin' for Jamaica. Remember that song? I do remember that song. I even like the cover Mariah did with it. Jenna said hello from Ohio. All right. Okay. So starting things right off, like I said, I hate not being in town when everything happens. Everything under the sun happened. Like the Diddy verdict came out while I was in Jamaica. The big beautiful bill passed while I was on the plane back to the US. So I was like, my friends and they was like, you might as well just stay on over there. But anyway, so like I told you guys, I had been kind of doing a few different trips and just different stuff for the last few weeks. We did some shows. I did an event in Atlanta, did an event in New York, went to Puerto Rico. Then we went to American Black Film Festival in Miami. And then I recently just came from Jamaica, which honestly, what's crazy is that's my first time out of the country since I was 12. For all of the world that I've lived in as a child, I really didn't do a lot of traveling as an adult, as far as like longer trips, just because specifically the work that I had working with the kids, it was very hard to get extended time off because all of our work and our jobs were so interdependent and we were always understaffed. And so it was almost impossible to take like 8 or 9 days to go somewhere. You could do 2 or 3. So a lot of my traveling for the last decade has always been just stateside. I've been to almost all states. We can do that all the time. But so that's kind of crazy, right? But I had a really great time in Jamaica. Jamaica was fun. Jersey, that's what he likes to go by, or Javon, the guy that directed my last music video, he's actually from there. They were having like a nice family reunion and stuff. He invited all of like the creative team to come out there with him. So it was like me, one of the guys that danced my video, so the guy Adam that works with like Zap Exclusive, which is like the company behind some of the shows we were doing. And a few good friends and everything like that. So it was a really, really just nice trip. And I'll say, I feel like you get a better experience when you go to different countries, when you go with people who already know the landscape, who know everything, as opposed to just kind of staying on the resort. Like we weren't just in the resort. We were like outside, literally all the time. And I also had it set up, my phone, your phone and stuff does not really quite work in other countries. If you don't pay for the roaming, and I wasn't paying for it. So the cool thing was my phone was pretty much off until I would get to the house where there's Wi-Fi. So I liked being able to unplug and live in the moment and really just kind of almost like disconnect, right? Because I knew thinking back home to the US, it was nothing but some chaos. So what's the rush of being worried about what's happening over there? So that was kind of one of the good things. Food, amazing. If I had my favorites, honestly, my favorite thing was literally just getting some food off the street. Wherever you're at when you're driving, there's all these vendors and stuff that are on the side of the road that are selling fruit or different goods or anything if you're not going to a market. So I really just, there was a club we went to around Montego Bay called Pier 1. And right outside of Pier 1 was this whole strip of vendors that are selling food. Like they're selling, fried fish. And so I just got some jerk chicken and fries. Honestly, that was the best meal I had. And I was supposed to just get enough to kind of save in the car. So when the driver takes us back, I could take it and eat it at the house. But I ate all that jerk chicken before we even got to the club. Now, you know what happened after that. Now I'm in the club about sleep, ready to go. And my friends are like, oh, we outside. So ain't no taking no nap. So yeah, so that was good. But I also enjoyed, there was a restaurant we went to called, I want to say it was Peppers. I had curry conch, really, really good. That's that thing that's inside the shell. That was probably the second best thing I had. And then I really liked the ackee and saltfish. We had that at the Pelican. For people who are in Jamaica, I'm just naming the spots. This is around Montego Bay, but I enjoyed Jamaica. We stayed around Montego Bay. Also went to the grill. This is an awesome time. I ended up performing out there as well. I didn't do my music though, because I realized the crowd was not going to hear that. So I did some Maxwell covers. Those are always safe for me. I have a falsetto, so I had to use it. And then, shout out to Naya. So we're in line for another club. I think I got the name right. And this was called 2727. And it was like a group of 8 of us. And, there's like one main entrance to get in. And it's shoulder to shoulder. The security's being all difficult and tight and stuff. But then there's another entrance where if you know people, they'll just kind of pull you in. So I was kind of being pulled in 2 directions because one friend, was like, let's just use the regular line. The other friend had to connect to get through the sideline. And then Naya, who is a subscriber here, happened to recognize me. And I felt so bad because I was kind of tuned out. So I think they were standing there for a good minute. And then I heard my name because I think they had said something before. But when you're outside, it's the noise, it's the sirens. There's a casino down the street. Everything's going on. You just kind of, you can't really hear anything. So then when I realized I heard somebody say Calvin, I'm thinking it's just one of my people. And I look and he was standing there. He's like, yo, I follow your channel. I was like, oh, nice. So got a few quick seconds to chop it up with them. They were traveling from Belize. So that was really cool. It's like, you never know who's going to know you. That's why you don't cut up in public. Right. Now, the one thing I will say, they drive crazy out there. That was the one thing it took me about 3 or 4 days to get used to. Because, man, like I said, we just had a driver that took us everywhere. But I was in that back seat speaking in tongues for half the drive because, one, they do got potholes. So a lot of times they're doing a swerving. And then if you're driving too slow, you keep passing the cars. But it's not like, especially when we're going to the grill, it's not like you're going on a freeway. You're going on these different winding roads that are there. And so sometimes the driver would start passing another car. And we're in the oncoming traffic lane, and it was freaking me out because we'd be in it a little too long for my liking. And then there's like a curve coming, and the driver's just going faster. I'm looking down at the ground like, Lord, please let us get here safely. So that was some entertainment, but I really, really, really had a great time. Jamaica was fun. The people were lovely. Food, again, the food was, I'll go back just to eat, to be honest. So that was a lot of fun. That was a great trip. That was a great, I'll say, wrap up to all of these different trips. That Jamaica was the last one. I know we're supposed to do LA at some point for a few things. I got some other things I'm working on, but later down the line. Anyway, one other announcement, something I'm going to try. Well, actually, we're going to try that's a little bit different. You guys know that I have the Comedically Hardheaded podcast. And if you have not listened to the latest episode, go check it out because y'all are the main ones asking for it. I made sure to have a new Comedically Hardheaded episode out before I got on the plane. So please don't get it confused with what's on the channel. The podcast episode that's uploaded to the channel that you're on right now, that is an older episode. The newest episode is on the streaming platform. So Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Buzzsprout, anything that has podcasts, we're on it. And so normally, like I say, I upload the latest episode on the streaming platforms, and once it's had its initial run, then it finds its way to the channel. But in addition to that, you guys know I did the short film Pull Over So I Can Hit You. And that's kind of been a collaboration with my writing partner, Caitlin. And she and I have been working on almost an extension of the Comedically Hardheaded podcast for like the last year to 2 years, as far as visual, as far as television, breaking it outside of just the podcast. That's pretty much how Pull Over So I Can Hit You happened. She heard the episode, the actual podcast episode of Pull Over So I Can Hit You, reached out, we clicked, we connected. That's how we got the short film. She and I have been working on treatments for more so of a sitcom idea. So one of the things that we started talking about was like, it would be really cool if we kind of include some of you guys in that process. So one of the things that I'm doing tomorrow, which will not be a traditional live, It will actually be a live session of she and I working together on our ideas and just some of the things that we're doing, because the end goal is, hey, get this script sold or picked up or turned into something, right? And so that's what we've been doing, the groundwork. So this would be kind of an invitation for you guys to just see what the creative process is like. Like I said, it wouldn't be alive. It wouldn't be me sitting here talking to you guys and we're going to talk about what's happening in music. It would literally be the camera's on me, the camera's on her. You just see us kind of writing and talking about different ideas. And so that will actually be tomorrow at about 8 or 9 o'clock. We'll see. So for anybody who's interested in just seeing how that creative process goes, feel free to join in. We don't know whether or not you guys are going to like it or not. We just thought it would be a cool idea to kind of let people see how kind of what goes on behind the scenes and how you kind of create, and the ups, the downs, the us fussing at each other and laughing 10 minutes later, all of that. So if that's something you're into, go for it. Okay, let's actually get to some topics. So I got a chance to go to the Beyonce show last night. Almost didn't make it. Like, honestly, things just kind of aligned real differently. I'll talk about Essence a little bit later, but initially my last trip was going to be Essence, and I changed my mind last minute because I was kind of just tired. Like, because it would have been getting back from Jamaica on the 3rd and hopping right on the plane to go to New Orleans, because Essence was the 3rd, I want to say, through the 7th. And I was like, it's too much on my plate. And I was like, plus, I kind of wanted to go to the Beyonce show anyway, because Beyonce was in D.C. for the 4th and the 7th. And so I tried to make the 4th happen. We really did, me and all my friends. Problem was, them tickets were high. They were high. And they tell you wait till the end for the markdowns. And I was waiting. It was 5:30, and the show apparently starts at 7, but she don't really be on stage till like 8:30. But the markdowns were getting low enough for my liking. And so I was like, well, I guess I just ain't going. And so I ended up going to my godmom's for the 4th of July. Not because we celebrate the 4th of July, but because she was cooking. And yeah, but what's so crazy, this is why social media can be really great sometimes. I literally had tweeted like, dang, man, looks like these prices ain't going down or something like that. And then somebody who was like one of my mutuals on Twitter, it messaged me and was like, oh, use this app. This is what you use to, I think it was the Game Time app. Like, use Game Time. This will help you get the better prices and kind of go from there. And so I went to that app, and then boom, I found this really, really, really good ticket in the 200 section. It was like the 200 section, but the front row of the 200 section. So really, you're just at the back of the 100 section. And it was a great seat because it's close enough to the stage where you can enjoy the show without looking at the big screen, but you can still see the entire stage production, which was like brilliant. So anyway, I had an amazing time. I have not seen Beyonce live in concert since the Miss Carter tour. The other 2 times that I've seen her weren't really concerts. It was 2009 when they had the Concert for America, when Barack Obama was first being inaugurated, and I think she did a song or two. I kind of caught the tail end of that, and I was in the crowd when she did the national anthem at Barack Obama's 2nd inauguration. But as far as concerts, the Miss Carter tour is the only Beyonce show I've been to. And so it was kind of cool to kind of compare and contrast just how much her shows have enhanced over the years or evolved. And, the interesting thing that I'll say, because I don't like stadium shows. I think stadium shows sometimes just really suck. But what I figured out is, it's not that they suck. It's a lot of times that artists don't know how to utilize the full stadium to engage the audience experience. And what I mean by that is, Beyonce's gift is that I feel like there's no bad seat at the Cowboy Carter tour. No matter where you sit, you're going to get a show. Even if you're in the very, very, very back. I didn't want to bump my head on the clouds because I was like, I'm not sitting in the 400 section. I don't like being that high until it's time to go meet the Lord. So like, I didn't want to be way up there, and I kind of didn't want to be on the floor because I like Beyonce, but I would not consider myself a member of the Beehive. And I know they were going to be down there lit, and I was going to be killing the energy because I'm not even a person that gets super hype at concerts. I'm so like observant because I'm looking at everything and paying attention to how many hits the band did before they transition and where the dancers coming in. I'm looking at the stage, looking for a hole in the floor to see when somebody's coming up. And so I would have been killing the energy down there. I would have still had a great time. But anyway, I say all that to say, the thing about this specific show is I feel like no matter where you sit, you got a great experience. She's learned how to turn the stadium show experience into more than just the end stage and everybody's looking at the stage. She brings the stage to you, right? Everything. I mean, she's flying on stuff and there's different lasers and the pyros coming here and this is coming there and the screen is just so big that it looks like it's in your face. I want to say she had 24 dancers. I was trying to do the count. There was a part where they were coming in on the X and I was like 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Okay, that's 24 and everything. Really, really cool. So I just feel like that conversation of like an end stage where, back in the day before production value got to what it is in modern times, like when you think about stadium tours, in the 70s. Think of like, especially like the hard rock and soft rock era or whatever was happening in the 80s with those stadium shows where everything is just at the end of the stage or the stage, and then it builds out to where the crowd is. The further back you go, not a lot is happening. And this is that era where you used to watch concerts with binoculars because they might not have had a screen. The thing is, like, when she had performed, I remember like she flew over to one side. I know when she did Cuff It all the way at the back of the stadium, which meant that anybody who had like a really seat that's further back, it's like now she's right there. And even when she's kind of flying over the different people, it's like she's close to everybody. So it's like people got that aspect. I enjoyed the musicality. I thought the band was amazing. The transitions, because you got a bit of everything. It wasn't just an R&B/pop concert with a hint of country. I mean, everything you could think of. There was classical. I mean, you had the violinist doing her solo, and getting it. It was like gospel, funk, hip hop, of course, house, the techno. Everything you could think of was saturated within the show. And I thought the visuals were really cool. One of the cool visuals was one where she's kind of dragging all the people who have a lot to say about her. Because, white America was pissed off that she did the country thing and they were not having it with her. So I love that there was a segment in the video collages in between her sets that kind of just highlight how oppressed people are and how people look really simple when they have some of these critiques that aren't warranted in anything other than the fact that they want Black people to stay in certain buckets that they approve of. And so I enjoyed those videos. There was a video that highlights the contributions of Black musicians and artistry when it comes to country music and Western and bluegrass. So I enjoyed all of that. What else? It was a whole lot. And like I said, the staging also made it cool because I'll be honest, like, I got all her albums, but I've probably listened to Cowboy Carter 2 times. So really, the only song on that album I really know is Bodyguard, because that was my song. That's the one I played a lot. But I was in there, and I think she probably did every song on that album. But there was this cool way that she was able to perform the songs, and even if you didn't know them, or even if you didn't necessarily care for the song, you still were thoroughly entertained. And what I realized is she's not really just performing the songs are being presented. Right. I think she has an understanding that as the industry has gone through a change and people don't really buy albums in the same manner. And a lot of times when people are going to these concerts, this is sometimes when they're hearing some of these songs for the very first time, because I feel like it was the same kind of approach with the previous tour based on what I saw with the movie. I felt like every song was presented. So when she did the Protector song, that's the one where her kids are on the stage, and it's Blue. By the way, I didn't realize Blue was like a full-time dancer on the show. I thought, just from what I saw on Twitter, I just thought it was that one part with the 2 sisters and the piece where she walked, but half the show, Blue was up. I was like, okay, like, okay, Blue. It's like, Lord, the Blue was out there getting it in. I was like, oh, Blue. I knocked my chain off, but yeah, so like Blue was out there just getting it, and so they just I don't know, it was really, really fun to watch. And then like just getting the like I said, the way that the songs were presented, I didn't know half the Cowboy, it's too tight. I didn't know half the Cowboy Carter songs, but I enjoyed how they were presented. So it made me, like, as soon as I was going to work this morning, I was like, oh, let me put this album on, because now you remember what you were experiencing when you heard these different songs. So then, like, I went back and I really liked the, Hands to Heaven song, and what's Alligator something. Look, I got to go back and listen, but I enjoyed it. So that was a lot of fun. It is a long show. I ain't gonna lie. We was there for a good minute because it got to the point where I started Googling what the set list was just to see how much more show there was. And it wasn't because I was bored or nothing, but it was hot. Okay. It was like humid, and DC humidity just sits on you. There's no wind. It's just hot. It's like when you open the oven and you get that whoosh, that's what it feels like, but it's permanent. So I was like, towards the end, I was getting a little restless, but really great show. I did get nervous when they had her flying across the stage because I did see the clip of the car tilting at a different show. The stuff wasn't working right. So my heart was pounding a little bit when she it was like the horseshoe thing, and they flew her across and then she got off it and did some more songs and then got back on. I'm like, she going back in it again? And they were just moving around. So I was a little nervous because I'm looking up, Northwestern Stadium in Maryland. It's not like it has a ceiling. It's just some little suspension strings that are holding up everything. So I'm looking at them strings, and the strings look like they moving and bouncing while she's flying. I'm like, okay, y'all better not drop her. There's enough going on. But yeah, if I had any favorites out of the show, like I said, I really enjoyed the Bodyguard song. So I enjoyed that performance. That was one of my favorites out of the show. I thought Yaya It was one of the openers. Was really high energy. I think she mixed that with Why Don't You Love Me. That was really fun to watch. And Thick from the Renaissance album was one of my favorite songs off that album. Sometimes I wish I still like choreographed and taught dance classes, because I definitely would have had a routine of that back in the day. And then Cuff It, like I said, I enjoyed Cuff It. And Cuff It is not even like a favorite song of mine, but it sounded really, really good in the stadium. Like the whole stadium was kind of thumping. And it kind of, I don't know, because I feel like most of the show, you're just so locked in watching, because there's so many things happening with the stage. But Cuff It to me was like the one number, and maybe Love on Top, where everybody's guard is down and they just kind of enjoy the song and just party to it. So Cuff It sounded really, really good. That was fun. Anyway, that was Beyonce. Great show. I think there's only a few dates left. I want to say Atlanta and Vegas. So if you're gonna go, better go now. And then yeah, who knows what you get for Act 3. Some people think her next album is rock. Deep inside, I'm hoping Act 3 is just a Destiny's Child reunion, but that's okay. Another conversation for another day. I'm gonna read some comments and then we're gonna jump into some of these stories I'm behind on. And yeah, then it gets heavier from there. So that's just your disclaimer. All right. Here we go. Somebody said, or Charlene said, I love visiting Jamaica. The first time it was beautiful. Black folks were running things. My mom's fiance is from Jamaica. He's from Mandeville. So they've been telling me for the longest, you need to go visit. So I'm happy I got a chance to go. Did I make it to Ocho Rios? Is it Ocho Rios? I did do the river rafting thing where it's the bamboo thing and you kind of sit on the nice water and just tread along. I don't know if that's Ocho Rios. I might be saying the wrong thing. But yeah, if that's it, I did go to that. That was fun. Even though they had me confused because they said we were going rafting. I thought when they said rafting, I thought it was, the big rubber orange boat you get in on the river rapids. And I was like, I don't really want to do that because my swimming is cool, but it ain't river rapids kind of swimming. So I was like, I don't want to do that. And they're like, no, it's just you're going to sit on like the lazy river. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can do that. That was nice. That was cool. And I really enjoyed just interacting with the people. Like I said, we didn't do the resort. So we were like in actual Jamaica amongst the people. So I enjoyed all of that. Resorts are cool, but resorts are like it's kind of like if you're a military kid and you live overseas, but you do everything on the base. It's like being in America. So I think it's good to sometimes branch outside of, but make sure you with some people right? Let's see, what else? Brooke Smith said it's giving office hours a nice idea. Yeah, that's kind of that's in reference to the script thing. So we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be kind of cool for you guys to kind of see what we've been doing, because I'm always talking about working on stuff and half the time you guys don't get to see it because it's a lot of the behind the scenes. I'm somebody who don't like to talk too much sometimes about what we're working on until you have something tangible to show. I'll also say I did get bit up a lot by mosquitoes. Between Puerto Rico, Miami, and Jamaica, I think I've been bit by everything outside. So yeah, lots of aloe vera to kind of manage some of them scars and stuff. Let me see here. Somebody said, you don't want to sit with us peasants up high, Calvin. No, it is not even that. I just don't like being up high. Plus, I will say, when you get to that 400 section, anything goes. When me and my friend Whitney went to the Anita Baker show two springs ago, they started fighting at the Anita Baker show at the top. I'm like, who fights during Anita Baker? She's singing love ballads. I apologize. You need to listen to the words. She's telling you how to resolve the problems. Y'all up there squaring up. And then, whenever somebody fights, there's always some random person that's just screaming for no reason. I'm like, unless somebody's dying, I need you to relax. And then me and another friend, last summer, we went to the Missy Elliott show, but we were in the 400 section. And it was cool until there was a fight right in front of us because there was a guy he was there for Sierra. Like, that's who we came to see. But he had these long micro braids and he kept swinging the braids. And, Sierra would be doing her little Sierra thing. And then he'd be doing the choreography. But when he kept dancing, his hair kept hitting this woman's husband. And so I thought the husband was about to get up and just wail on him. I was like, please, God. But instead, it wasn't the husband. It was the wife. And then the wife was right next to him. And then she got up and there. And apparently they all knew each other. And then all I know is the yellow shirts, the little CSC people came and just cleared that whole section. It was like 10 people in front of us that all had to leave. 400 section is cool when you want to see the full stage and see the production value. But I don't like being way up there. Just to be honest, it'd be too much stuff going on up there, folks. I feel like the closer you get to the floor, the better folks know how to act because they realize you done spent too much money, so you want your money's worth. But no, I've seen a lot of shows at the very, very top. I saw Maxwell's tour in '09 we were in the very back of Capital One Arena. When I say we're at the very top and our heads were against the wall, but I had an amazing time at that show because Maxwell it's not really like a visual show. You just hear it all. So that was fun. Anyway, where are we at? Somebody said Beyonce performing "Daughter" gave me chills. I gotta remember. That's not the song with the two little girls. I don't think it's a different song. I think I gotta remember what songs was. I was being reintroduced to a lot of these songs. It was also kind of cool to look at like what she's wearing, and she still looks really, really good. And to be honest, I think people underestimate or kind of live in this bubble where they think after you're out of your 20s, you're supposed to just shrivel up. Like, I think she's 44, 45-ish. She looks really, really good. You can see that her face is a bit more distinguished, but she looks really good. And then I was sitting there. There was another piece in the show where it did like this video collage of like the beginning of her career to the moment or to the current moment. And I was like, dang, man, I was really around to witness this entire thing. It's kind of cool. Then you feel like a proud parent, even though she's older than me. And so, yeah. Somebody said they cried. They went to opening night. I enjoyed watching the people enjoy themselves. That's one of my favorite things to do about concerts. I like to people watch too. Like I'm going to enjoy myself, while I'm observing the show and doing a little cool little dance when the right song comes on. But I like to see people like just get excited. In front of us was a family to the right. It was like a mom, her sister, and the daughter. The daughter might have been 10. She had her cowboy hat on, her little mask, but then she had an attitude because she was hot under the mask. So she took the mask off. They was fighting for before the show started. And then as soon as that show started, it was kind of cool to watch generationally who was into what part. And so, the mom was there for all of the throwback Beyonce tracks. The next one, who I think was the honored sister, she knew all the new Beyonce material. The little girl clearly rides in the car with the aunt everywhere because the little girl knew all the songs, everything. She knew some of the choreography somehow. I'm like, all right, cool. But I like watching the people enjoy themselves and see all the people in the cool cowboy costumes. I didn't do no costume. I spent enough on the ticket. I just being there was more than enough for me. Plus, it was hot. So, plus, I didn't even do the cowboy costume when I was in Houston for the rodeo. I was so mad because I ended up going to one of the hat places. They didn't have a hat that could fit my head. And the only thing I could have done at the time was maybe cornrow my hair so it could be a little smaller and get in the hat. Because again, when it's hot, it's humid. My hair gets bigger. So no, I didn't even get a thing for the rodeo. So much for that. Somebody said Blue said boom cat. Yeah, Blue, that little girl, she was getting it. It's kind of cool to see her grow up too. And just see how much better she's gotten on stage. Like she's comfortable. Like that's her stage. Because it was towards the end of the show. They just had her come out the floor and just walk down the catwalk. All she did was just walk. But the way she was walking, I was like, oh, I mean, she was walking like it was her concert. And she looked just like her mama. That's the scary part. She looks like both parents, but it's time needs to slow down. I remember when Blue was born. Like, time needs to slow down. I feel like I was 19 like 3 years ago, and it's like, dang, right? I feel like I'm a blink, and then the next one, Rumi, and I think the other one's Sir, they're gonna be like 26. All right. Anyway, what up, Natural Empress said, awesome, Calvin, you were in my country. Oh yeah. It was lovely. Okay, we got to keep it moving, y'all. Speaking of Naya, he's in the chat. He said, peace. It's Naya from Brazil. See? Boom. I told you, look, folks be trying to say, like, I try to be really, I know this sounds corny, but every time I meet somebody that knows me from YouTube, I write it down. Like, I have an entire list of every person I've met since 2012 or something. And not only do I like write down their name, but then I write down like where I met them. Let's see. I'm not going to go through it all because we got to get to our actual topics. I'm acting like this is the end of the live already. Yeah, I got this whole list of people that I've just, it's not that long. It's like maybe 34 people, but the majority of them have all popped up in the last. So any questions that I did not get to, just kind of put towards the Okay, Diddy trial. Like I said, I was in Jamaica when the verdict came out. It's a trial I've been following, but not really married to, because this is really not my lane as far as like what I like to talk about on this channel. That's why I always tell you guys, go check out some of the other ones who really go and follow these things. But, I'm going to say this. What I've seen in response to the verdict, because, pretty much there were 5 counts that made it to at least a verdict. There were some other things that were kind of thrown out. But, there was a racketeering count. There were 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. He was found not guilty on all 3 of those. And then there were also 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, and he was found guilty on those 2 counts. But I'll say it's interesting because we're in a very unique territory where a lot of times love of celebrity outweighs reality. And I think some of the reactions that I saw were really weird, right? Like the people throwing the baby oil on themselves outside of the courthouse. I think that's when we start getting to a place where it's like, all right, what's the actual end goal here? And what element of all of this are you celebrating, right? I was very disturbed with that piece. Like that kind of threw me off. And I was just like, I'm not sure what to make of that. And I don't know. Anyway, but sentencing is going to be in October. He faces possibly up to 20 years because of the 2 prostitution counts. So 10 years for each count. I don't think they're going to give him the full 20. I have no idea what he'll get. I think he'll get more than 5, but less than 15. That's me. I could be 100% wrong. I think that's kind of what they're going to give him. And I think what happened with this case, the challenge was, because really this is about, because some people were saying, well, why is it that he was convicted of the prostitution part, but not the trafficking? And the conversation or that difference, it centers around the narrative of consent. With prostitution, there's an element of consent, right? The person who is, giving the service, once you make that exchange of money for the service, that's the element of consent to that aspect. But as far as like trafficking, or like they say by force or coercion, that's not necessarily the same kind of conversation. And I think that's where it becomes really murky. And I think for the jury, I believe there was a struggle with trying to see that you can have a hostile environment as well as consent in the same space. And what I mean by that is I think a lot of times they looked at a lot of the testimony. They looked at some of the things that were said by some of the witnesses. And even though there were lots of witnesses who were victims, because these same victims also participated in some of these acts, I don't think people in the jury were able to kind of paint a bigger picture. And it kind of turned into a one or the other. That's just my personal opinion, right? And like I said, when this case first started, I said for the defense, the main thing that they would have to do is just poke holes. It's not the defense's job to build a new story or to, create a narrative that the general public or the jury is going to believe. They just have to poke holes in the prosecution's story. They just have to get it to the point where, when you're talking about the burden of proof for a criminal case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. That just means that, there has to be no doubt that the evidence points to all of these things happening in the way that it was presented, and this is why the person is guilty. Now, when we're talking civil cases, that's preponderance of the evidence, meaning more likely than not. You just need 50.1% as far as an idea to be like, okay, it leans a little bit more this way, so boom, now that person's liable. But this wasn't a civil case. And so I think that's kind of one of the things that just made all of this really, really like sketchy. But anyway, defense, all they had to do was poke holes. So I think that's why the trafficking got thrown out, because it goes back to what I was saying as far as people in the jury may be struggling with the idea of consent in a hostile environment existing in the same realm, especially when you start digging into the testimony from somebody like a Cassie or a Don Richard and everything. I don't think everybody could kind of see that 2 things could be true at once. It was kind of like a one or the other. And so because it's one or the other, I'm just going to either dismiss all of this or I'm going to accept it all. There was no in between. I think that's kind of just what I saw. And the other thing, too, that I find interesting, because I've seen a lot of narratives about, well, they were trying to take the black man down kind of conversations. And y'all know I rally behind all elements of blackness. But I think we have to get out of the habit of thinking that we're supposed to rally behind every person who looks like us. And for me, the issues I have with Diddy, most of them have really not a lot to do with this case, so I can't kind of put that on the case. But for me, Diddy has shown us who he is for the longest, which is why he was not somebody I was planning to rally behind at all. I kind of was like, let me sit and observe and see how this goes. But he wasn't going to be somebody I'd run to the troops for. And if anything, and like I said, you don't waste your time rallying behind people, especially those who play in your face all the time. And for me personally, the minute I saw that video of him pounded on Cassie in the hallway, for me, that was that's it. I have nothing to give you, because I already had my opinions on you, but now you've just given me confirmation of everything I already thought to begin with. So I'm done. Like, I'm not going to be the one rallying the troops, and we ain't going to be out here giving speeches and talking about Fred Hampton, because we tend to, not we, but folks tend to only want to have this conversation around celebrities and athletes. But then when it's the actual people who are doing the work, the actual people who really are political prisoners, the actual people who really do sacrifice their livelihood or their liberties to ensure that the Black collective is okay, crickets, silence. But let it be a celebrity. Let it be somebody who got a good remix. Let it be somebody who won your favorite championship. Then all of a sudden, you want everybody to rally behind them. And it's to the point where, like I said earlier, that conversation of love of celebrity versus reality, people just tune out everything they see, and they got to, he ain't do it. That nope, 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 nope. And everything is dancing around. Nope, he ain't, nope, 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 no. And so for me, it's just like, nah. And you can kind of see that he already had a pattern of trying to like rebuild the image. You saw that when he started, giving everybody back their royalties, because we've done tons of videos of all the people he screwed over. This is for years, right? Go back and watch all the old In the News episodes where I used to talk about Diddy a lot. But, he gave back the royalties to different artists. And then, he tried to rebrand. He changed his name to Love. And then all of a sudden he was down with the people. So he was going to jump into the R party, or he kind of endorsed, there was that Black political party, the R party movement in 2020, right before the election, which I told y'all, I don't like when celebrities wait until after early voting has started to try and start a movement politically in elections in 3 or 4 weeks. That's not how this works. But I just feel like he's somebody that has always used his power to manipulate. And so, like I said, most of that has nothing to do with this actual case, but that's just kind of how I've always felt about Diddy in the last few years. And so for me, the nature of his character is all I need for my justification as to why I have my viewpoints about the man. And so, like I said, we'll see what kind of happens with the sentencing. Like I said, I think between 5 and 15, who knows? Somebody else was saying that he won't get any time, which I don't buy that at all. Somebody said he would just get time served, but I don't think he's been in long enough for them to kind of give him that. And I also don't think Diddy is the only person in all of this. I think he kind of, to an extent, becomes a scapegoat, but I think there's there's many other people that are tied to this that just their names didn't come up. And when it comes to like a racketeering and a RICO case, there's like the 5 elements that you have to, or 4 or 5 elements of all that you have to prove. And I don't know if they were able to necessarily do all that. Some people think that the case was rushed a little bit because, again, when you're talking federal cases, they normally have like a 98% conviction rate. They don't normally lose. So it is what it is. I just want people to do right by folks. That's where I'm at. I need people that are in positions of power to do right by folks. As far as the conversations around like the freak offs and all that, that's sex. Sorry. If they're consenting adults, they do whatever they do. If they want to go in the room with the baby oil and lights out and dark lights and strobe lights and whatever, go for it. If they all consenting, it's consenting. The conversation again goes back to consent, which is why I think again there wasn't that conviction with the trafficking aspect, because I don't know if the witnesses were able to 100% prove to the jury that the experiences that they had were 100% through coercion and force. And it's a slippery slope. I think those are some tough shoes to be in. But again, for me, it was just weird seeing some reactions, seeing people like more excited about this verdict than they are concerned about other issues in the world. Right? Anyway, let me read some comments here. Let's see who's ready to fight with me in the chat tonight. Y'all know I don't fight back anyway. But anyway, let's see. Somebody said 2 to 4. Somebody said he'd probably get 10. Somebody said 1 year in prison. Lord, somebody said their grandma says he deserves to get whooped by a bullwhip. She said he has all the money and he's not doing anything for anybody, just acting a fool. She says he could be helping folks. That kind of goes back to what I was saying as far as when like some of these celebrities get in trouble and I'm not saying that when stuff happens, we're supposed to throw the book at everybody and just lock them up right away. My thing is more so when we rally behind folks that have shown us their ass to kiss many times over. And then we rally behind them when I feel like that energy could be given to people who are actually doing work that's needed within this community. Like that's kind of just where I'm at. And it's not saying that if you're not this upstanding citizen, you're not worthy of, concern or empathy or anything, but it's just like the pattern every time. Why is it that sometimes it'd be the worst people that people go the hardest for? I mean, mad. You watch people throw their morals in the trash over celebrities. That's wild to me. Anyway. Somebody said there was definitely doubt with the sex trafficking. They both participated willingly. Somebody said some can't be saved. Somebody said exactly, Calvin. I don't tolerate slackness simply because you're Black. Because honestly, we told this story before, but that's how we got Clarence Thomas. That's Clarence Thomas in there messing up stuff now. Because one of the main things that took place when it came to those confirmation hearings, when those allegations came out against him, there were people in the community rallying behind him, didn't know his politics, but just saw it was him and he was one of us. And they trying to take the black man down. Y'all know he's supposed to be replaced Thurgood Marshall. Y'all trying to stop that man from all that he's done. And this man has been terrible. And because people didn't lock in and pay attention and look at his politics or even pay attention to the fact that at the time he had been working for Reagan, that should have been more than enough to tell you he wasn't for us. But no, they folks was rallying and man, they got the grills and stuff outside and the cookout, and he got in there because Bush #1 played in our face. Thurgood Marshall said, "I'm retiring." Bush 1 said, "Great, man, you guys want representation, right? Okay, I got some representation for you. Give me that book and that those ones that play on our team." And Clarence was in the book. They said, put him out there. So they got somebody who was the polar opposite of Thurgood Marshall, put him in there. Representation with no context, with no meaning, with no integrity, just the shades of brown in space. So I'm like, folks got to be careful with that. Yep, Tyler Hackman, I agree. He's far from the only person involved. I said the same thing with the R. Kelly situation. Like, R. Kelly would have been able to get away with half the stuff he got away with if there weren't so many enablers around him. And see, that's how money talks. Like, money, people will let so much stuff slide when there's a check involved, or when there's the opportunity for a come up, or when there's the opportunity for their livelihood to be good. Like, there's so many people that be involved with this nonsense. And a lot of times those celebrities end up being the scapegoat for the bigger picture. And it's not giving them a pass to their nonsense, but it's just highlighting that a lot of this stuff they wouldn't have been able to do solely by themselves as just an individual. But because they have people around them that kind of create these environments and provide different resources and services to make a lot of these different things happen, right? It's kind of like even if you read that Mariah book, when she talks about being with Tommy Mottola, and like he was very controlling, but he also had like crazy security and cameras. And I remember, I think I actually put it in my So What Happened episode where the brats talking about they just wanted some French fries, and they got the car and rode out, and it's JD and them are getting met with guns and everything because they're just supposed to be doing Always Be My Baby remix with Escape and Mariah, and they were, where's she at? And it's like, she just want to get some fries. What's the problem? But Tommy Mottola had like a whole crew of folks. They had Mariah up in there caged down. Anyway, yeah, the people pouring the baby oil on themselves, you just look stupid. I had nothing to give for that. Yeah, nothing I can give for that. That is foolish. Thank you, Naji. Microphone's popping. It's not me. It's because it's storming outside. So sorry about that. It's whatever's happening with the weather is kind of affecting me out here, and it's like terrible outside. I apologize. Actually, let me move my phone away from the thing too. That might be doing that too. All that radiation out here. Okay, we're gonna move on. I want to talk about these floods in Texas. Let me see here. Okay, so let me just give some of the facts first, and I'll give my opinion. So some of the things we know. There was a frame of 3 hours and 21 minutes when it came to the warning. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in Kern County, Texas, right along one of the rivers, this big giant storm or this bit of rain, the river rises up like 30 feet. And unfortunately, as of 8:42 p.m. today, there's been 110 people who are deceased. Plus, I want to say another, let me see, what was my number I wrote down? Another 161 people who are still missing. And sadly, 27 of those who have passed were kids that were at a camp, the Mystic Camp. And so with all that being said, there was a window of 3 hours and 21 minutes when it came to the warning for people. But the problem was that the storm took place overnight. And so a lot of people didn't get the warning. In addition, when we're talking about a place like where the camp is located, it's highly likely that in a lot of those spots, there wasn't even cell phone service for the warning to go out, right? Now, some additional facts that we do know that have taken place from a federal level. We know that with the DOGE cuts and with the changes in the administration, we know that we have 600 National Weather Service employees who have been cut. 500 pretty much took the early buyouts, and 100 were let go because of the probationary clause, right? So you have that aspect. When you talk about the budget, there actually was a 6.7% budget increase in this current budget, but at the same time, that budget proposed cuts to other areas of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, including research that will assist forecasters. So yeah, there was some increases, but there were also cuts at things that actually would matter. So we know that that happened, right? So then when you're talking about the NOAA, there was an 11% reduction in force. When you talk about the National Weather Service, there was a 17% reduction in force. And so there's this debate as to whether the cuts from the current administration played a direct role in everything that's taking place in Texas, right? And it's wishy-washy. A lot of folks are like, hell yeah, that's the reason why they cut all the stuff, and that's why the stuff ain't working. My thing is this, and this is just how I see it, because the White House is saying, oh, well, this was unpredictable. This is an act of God. That's just kind of what happens. That's what weather does. You can't always predict everything. And then, somehow they throw Biden in there and it's everybody else's fault. My thing is this. If you know that weather is unpredictable, if you know that weather sometimes can go against the grain, even with the best of resources and the best of technology, then why would you cut the technology we already have? Why would you gut different systems, satellite programs, and people who are experts, and force people into early retirements, or force people to quit their jobs because you keep wanting to chop the government down, or the federal government down, which I'm going to get to in a second, when you know weather is unpredictable? In this current time where we've seen the extremities become a little bit more intensive when it comes to weather. Remember a few lives ago where I talked about how even Tornado Alley has shifted further to the east in comparison to where it was, if you were growing up in the 80s and the early 90s, right? Well, we know that we're starting to see changes in weather patterns. This would be the time that you want to invest more. This would be the time when you really want to lock in and make sure that every I is dotted, every T is crossed, and that you're doing more than enough to ensure that everybody is good. This will not be the time to cut corners, especially, again, we're in the middle of tornado season right now. Hurricane season also just kicked off, and it's going to, it gets even worse as you get closer to the fall. All these different things taking place. And seeing that we've had these very catastrophic weather events in the last 3 or 4 years, and they're becoming more and more common, why would you continue to cut things that people actually utilize with regard to safety and the well-being of people? And I don't think folks understand that, when you're getting rid of 17%, that's almost 1/5. That's more like a sixth. 1/6 of the entire force. But then that same organization is expected to meet all the demands, because what I noticed is you saw that the National Weather Service got most of the blame. The people in Texas were saying it was them, it's their fault. Abbott was like, it's the National Weather Service. Everybody's blaming the National Weather Service. And I'm like, they just got gutted, right? It doesn't make any sense to me. It would be like, I don't know. It's almost like if you run a restaurant, and let's say this restaurant has 50 staff. That includes the host. That includes the servers. That includes the custodial staff. That includes the cooks, right? That includes everybody. They need 50 people every day to make things happen. And let's just say that, at peak hours, they have 300 customers any given time. That would be like cutting 1/6 of that 50, or let's just say you cut everybody out the kitchen. You only leave like 3 people left in the kitchen, but that same 300 is still coming. And then because the service at the restaurant sucks, everybody's blaming is blaming the cooks, like, y'all are messing this up. And it's like, but you got rid of everybody on the team. It's 3 of us, right? How are we supposed to do this? We only got 6 hands and we got to feed 300 people. And so it's almost that same approach where you're watching a lot, which to me, this is part of the plan, which I'll get to in a sec. You're watching resources get gutted and get cut. And then people are getting mad at the end result. And it's like, this is self-inflicted. This is what you guys put into play, right? And I'm not talking about the victims. I'm talking about those in charge who saw how this was going to go. You saw that clip from the meteorologist in Florida who was saying, hey, I just want to let you know, these are the changes that have been taking place. These are the cuts that are coming. There's going to be a lot of things that make it harder for us to tell you what's happening with weather. It's going to make it a lot harder for us to predict where storms are coming, how much rain is going to fall, these different things. There's also people in that area who were saying that they never heard any warning signs. They never heard any sirens. They didn't get any alerts about the flood. So there's kind of I would say contradictory. I'm not going to say contradictory. I'm just going to say there's different reports of people sharing their experience where some people are saying, yeah, we got a warning. Others are saying we got nothing. And so understand this is the reality of how it's about to be with a lot of things. If you thought this was terrible, I hate to put it in the universe, but this won't be the only outcome unless those in charge decide to say, actually, no, we need to kind of reverse this. Let's put more people in these different positions. Maybe we put even research to do a better job of being able to predict how much we should expect, a river to rise as far as water rates, or how much rain is going to fall in an area, like all these different things. My approach has always been, there's always something people can learn. There's always something that we can enhance. But for some reason with this current administration, and a lot of people who really back these same ideas, they love the ideas of trying to cut everything and streamline everything and cut this and cut that. And let's just get the most out of the bare minimum, Let's strip everything down to the bare bone and then make it overperform. I think that's a chaotic way of doing things, and it makes stuff difficult, right? And it's not just specifically with National Weather Service and what's happened with NOAA, but it's almost every service, every agency, every program is dealing with the same thing. It's ridiculous. It's like, I just feel like as a society, you want to get into a space where you're making sure you're not running into problems. And a lot of the problems we have right now are self-inflicted. These are created. All the chaos we've been in since January is not because things just happen to happen. This is stuff that people like, oh, well, what else can we mess up today? Let's do it. Go for it. It's crazy. All right, let me read some comments here. All right, I hope this sound is still not cracking. Said, have I moved to my new place yet? Nope. I'm kind of in between spots. But I mean, this is home for like a good minute. But my next home is gonna be out of the DMV, just because I want to do something a little different. So that's kind of what we're trying to make happen. Let's see. Is my sound still tripping? I'm gonna be real annoyed if it is. All right. Anyway, we gotta keep going now. Somebody said, I'm actually surprised Ted Cruz was in Texas. Usually when disasters come, he's usually vacationing someplace. He was in Greece from what I read. Oh, Cruz said the same thing. I think he was in Greece, but he happened to get back. Now, I'll say the difference, though. He was already there. As opposed to when it was the big freeze in Texas and power was out and they just went to Mexico. I'm like, how you going to leave the people to freeze to death? Now, that in itself is some trifling stuff. Yeah. Somebody said, why people are scared of Trump is beyond me. I don't know either. And it pisses me off because every time he says jump, everybody says how high. The wildest thing is watching everybody just jump and get in the code right away. You didn't see a lot of resistance. Even the whole DEI thing, watching companies that have no connection to the federal government. They're not getting government contracts. There's no tax incentive for what they do. They literally are their own freestanding company. Watching all these companies just jump on board. Okay, we'll get rid of this. We get rid of that. Da, 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 da. It's like, nobody even asked y'all, but y'all couldn't wait to do it, huh? I just want everybody to remember how all these corporations and companies move, because folks are already starting to get selective memory with certain things already. Just be in the know for that. That's all I'll say. What the fuck is wrong with my sound? It's pissing me off. Let's see something here. Can I adjust this? Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. This weather's tripping. Okay, we'll just have to. Maybe I'll just talk a little louder. Maybe I'll come in clearer. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Whatever. Let's see. Somebody said he was in Greece but returned for the cameras. Tatum Brown said, just hit it. I don't want to hit it. I just bought this MacBook. This thing better start working. Music is life. You got good jokes. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep going. Epstein. All right. Now, I'll be honest. I don't really like talking about Epstein too much because I think it jumps so far into that weird QAnon right-wing space. Some of the this is one of the things I don't really jump into, but because I'm seeing so much nonsense, I said let me just talk about it real quick. So as we know, you had Jeffrey Epstein, very rich guy, socialite, had an island, all kind of folks used to go there, do all kind of stuff. They traffic folks, traffic kids, everything under the sun. He ended up going to jail. His assistant, the Maxwell lady, she got sentenced to 20 years. 2019, he somehow dies in the jail cell, and they said he killed himself. And then it's just been all these conspiracies and theories and everything else. And there's questions about different documents, specifically what you would call his client list, people who were going to the island, right? And this all started, everything around him really got some traction around 2015. Or it might not be 2015, but sometime around that time frame where there was somebody who was underage who made the accusation that he had done very inappropriate things with them underage. And that kind of opened the Pandora's box. And then you realize this man was tied to everybody under the sun. And so for the longest, there have been conversations about this client list. even coming from the White House as recent as February. You know, they came out with the press conference. They had binders and everything else like that. So anyway, we get to the other day, and the Justice Department and the FBI have concluded that there is no Epstein list, and that he did die in prison of his own doing. Nobody took him out. It's just the way it is. Because the idea or the perception was that people felt like somebody took him out in the cell because when he got an opportunity to talk, it's going to put people out there on Front Street. So it was like, take him out. That's what's been floating, right? And they also released the footage of the jail cell, and they show the footage from, let me see here, 10:40 p.m. on August 9th until 6:30 a.m. the next day around the time when he was found. And the video apparently shows nobody coming into the cell to do anything. Take it how you want to take it. I mean, with video and stuff in this current age, I don't really know what people really jump and latch into as far as what to believe, especially in the era of AI, and especially because it's easy to just have a video and just manipulate the timestamps, but whatever. Now, here's the issue. So half of his cabinet are people who latch onto every conspiracy theory and believe everything under the sun, right? So when we get to his FBI director, Patel, that's the one with the eyes, be looking like this all the time. Can you picture like somebody ask you out on a date like this or ask for your number? What do you say? Because you'd probably be scared to say no because they look like they probably cut you to pieces right afterwards, right? Or like, can you imagine if you're that person who works at like McDonald's or Burger King and it's 10:29 and the person gets there ready to order breakfast, but then it just went to 10:30 and you got to tell them that they don't have breakfast anymore and they got to get lunch? Can you imagine? Anyway, so you got Patel and you also have Dan Bongino. He's the deputy director. Now, both of them have spent all this time before they got in there questioning how Epstein died. They were some of the main ones. I made sure I got some quotes up in here, right? Let me see here. This is Patel. He was on some podcast. The question said, you say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. Why is the FBI protecting the largest scale pedorist in human history? I hope I said that right. Patel's response, simple, because of who's on the list. I said, oh, okay. Interesting, right? And then I think what also was interesting is, when Elon and Orange Man fell out for the 15th time, or maybe the first time, because now we're on fallout number 15, that was one of the first things Elon couldn't wait to put out there. He said, Trump is on that list, right? And then this is around the time we start seeing the narrative around that list change. And now all of a sudden there's no list. So you kind of had that going on. And Patel also claimed that in order to solve all this, you just need to subpoena the FBI. And I'm like, well, now you're the head of the FBI. Go ahead and subpoena yourselves. None of that, right? So all of a sudden now the case is closed, everything's settled. And I think because people have seen that this current administration lies about everything under the sun, a lot of people are like, something don't add up here. Like how all of a sudden is everything just settled? Years and years, and because we're talking thousands and thousands of pages of files. I'm not talking about the client list, but just the actual investigation and all the interviews and witness testimony and the scoping out and everything. Thousands of pages of stuff that was redacted, stuff that was public. And now all of a sudden it's all settled in the snap of a finger because Patel, who has barely even been in the area because he doesn't want to be in DC, he still wants to be in his home state, who is barely anywhere. Somehow this agency that he has figured it all out in like 2 months, right? So I think a lot of people are like, something don't add up. And the theory that a lot of people believe is that Orange Man is on that list. And so rather than, open things, just in the case, throw it away, put it in trash, act like nothing happened. Because can we be honest, if Orange Man wasn't on that list, he would have been the first one ready to release it, because half the people who are alleged to be on the list are people he doesn't like anyway. Clintons and all these different folks. Oh, he would have a field day putting that list out and then going after everybody. So interesting. We'll see how this goes, but it's crazy because the other thing too, if you're talking Epstein and Orange Man, they're tied together. There's tons of pictures and parties, but then one of the things Orange Man likes to do is act like he doesn't know people after the fact. Now all of a sudden I don't know him. Now he's Mariah Carey. I don't know her. In pictures together, partying together, just drinking together. I don't know who that is. They tripping, and it's not even Epstein. He does that with everybody all the time. We'll see kind of what happens with that. That's probably the last time I'm going to talk about that, because I don't want that whole Epstein energy over here. Y'all keep that with the other conspiracy channels. That ain't really this one. But it's just interesting to see how much they play in your face on live TV. It's just like I'm looking at Pam Bondi. I'm like, you had binders just February 23rd, binders everywhere. Yeah, the stuff is sitting right on my desk. We're about to shake things up. And everybody was like, all right, let's shake it up, shake it down. And then it's time to shake it up. And they're shook. Ain't nothing. I said, okay, all right, okay. So that'll be interesting. I feel like all of the ones who are really into that are they're not letting that go away. That is about to have some legs, right? So we'll see what goes on with that one. All right, let's go to this chat here. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna have to get this thing is still cracking. So yeah, so what I've learned, unfortunately, as happy as I am that I have this new MacBook, because my other MacBook was so seasoned, that's the phrase we're gonna use. I have to pretty much replace most of my recording equipment, specifically the interface, because it's not compatible with this current MacBook. So I'm literally using the speaker that comes with the MacBook. So that's why you don't see like the microphone over here being used at the moment. I have to go and get a new interface that is compatible. It's the conversation of Intel versus M4 chip. So it's the same thing with some of my plugins in my studio. I mean, I still have the old MacBook, but it's just so slow. I'm like, I don't even want to get on that thing. So yeah, adjusting, but it comes with a time, or it comes with territory. All right. Somebody said, you know why they destroyed the docks? Pretty much. Somebody said skin representation with no ideology representation. That was about Clarence Thomas. Exactly. Somebody said, not the blank, unblinking stare. Yeah, that's funny. They said, does Trump still want to deport Elon? I don't know. He got so much going on. Somebody said, where am I? What's the background? This is the office I'm in. I just put a nice background because I didn't like that gray wall when we first started. Yeah, in my office, I got all my studio equipment over there. This is the desk. So yeah. Okay, I gotta keep going, y'all. This Build Back Better bill. All right, I think I'm gonna share the screen on this one. So we're gonna actually read this article because I do want to talk about this Build Back Better bill. It passed while I was in the air. Okay, you know, I was one of those people who paid for Wi-Fi on the flight, and I knew they were gonna pass this thing. I just knew it. Like I was like, they got the votes. Even the holdouts. I'm like, it's performative. They do it every time. It's kind of like Susan Collins, who's always concerned, and then she still signs up for all the crazy stuff. Murkowski, who they were like, you know, Murkowski just a week ago or two ago was like, oh yeah, if I'm almost ready to leave my party and become a Democrat. I was like, no, that's not how that works, because you're still gonna you just turn into a cinema and mansion and be in the way of whatever they were trying to do. But I knew that crap was about to pass. Let me share my window here. Because we're going to have a conversation. All right, so let's scroll this down. All right, the White House. All right, the House has passed a massive spending bill and tax bill that includes signature policies of President Trump's second term agenda Thursday, sending the so-called Big Beautiful Bill to President's desk ahead of the 4th of July deadline. Trump signed the bill into law Friday afternoon. The House approved the bill 218 to 214 Thursday after the Senate narrowly approved the bill Tuesday in a 51-50 vote that required Vice President J.D. Vance to break a tie. At the center of the big bill is an extension of Mr. Trump's 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, we talked about that on the last live. That's the same thing as the Paul Ryan tax cut, same name, right? Which was slated to sunset at the end of the year. The legislation would make most of the cuts or tax cuts permanent while increasing spending for the border, security, defense, and energy production. The bill is particularly paid for by significant cuts to health care and nutrition programs like Medicaid and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. The Congressional Budget Office estimates the bill would add $3.4 trillion of federal deficits over the next 10 years and leave millions without health insurance. Republicans in the White House dispute those forecasts. Senate Republicans use a process known as budget reconciliation to pass the bill, which limits the type of policies that can be included in a simple majority vote. A handful of provisions that initially appeared in the bill were ultimately removed, including the one that would have ordered the sale of public lands, thank God, and another that would have paused state regulations on artificial intelligence. The House has passed its own initial version of the legislation last month, with some key differences to the final Senate-crafted version. The lower chamber approved the Senate changes Thursday, sending the measure to the president's desk. Here's what's in the 887-page bill. Medicaid restrictions. The legislation includes restrictions on Medicaid, which provides government-sponsored health care for low-income and disabled Americans. The bill imposes work requirements for some able-bodied adults and more frequent eligibility checks. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that this bill will result in 11.8 million Americans losing health care coverage under Medicaid over the next decade. The Senate parliamentarian determined that a measure cutting federal funds to states that use Medicaid infrastructure to provide health care to cover undocumented immigrants, along with banning Medicaid from covering gender transition services, wasn't in compliance with Senate reconciliation rules. The parliamentarian also weighed in on what's known as the provider tax, which states use to help fund their portion of Medicaid costs, in a blow to the Senate's GOP initial plan. Senate Republicans proposed steeper cuts to Medicaid funding, in part by incrementally lowering provider taxes from 6% to 3.5% by 2032. The timeline is delayed by 1 year from the Senate's GOP initial proposal. After the issue became one of the bill's sticking points in recent weeks, it's a departure from the initial House-passed bill, which sought to lower federal costs by freezing state provider taxes at current rates and prohibiting them from establishing new provider taxes. The bill also includes a rural hospital stabilization fund after some GOP senators expressed concern over how rural hospitals could be impacted by Medicaid restrictions, allotting $50 billion for rural hospitals over the same period that provider taxes would be lowered. One of the things that I will say with that piece too, that will, for those who are not on Medicaid, you're still going to be affected because your premiums are going to go up. So what happens is when you have people who don't have health coverage or health care, how the hospitals end up kind of getting their money back is it kind of indirectly goes into what you want to say is almost like the government. And then it kind of that offsets the prices with your premiums. And then your premiums just go up to make up the difference because it goes through like private companies and some weird collaboration with the government, some weird stuff. So yeah, even if you're not on Medicaid, it will still affect you. Even if you have your own health insurance, just get ready for your premiums to go up a little bit. Homeland Security and Immigration. This is weird to me as well. The legislation includes more than $46.5 billion for border wall construction and related expenses, $45 billion to expand detention capacity for immigrants in custody, and about $30 billion in funding for hiring, training, and other resources for U.S. immigration and customs enforcement. So pretty much $30 billion for ICE. That's more than any policing agency in the country at the moment. It also includes a minimum $100 fee for those seeking asylum, down from the $1,000 fee outlined in the initial House bill. The Senate parliamentarian ruled out the $1,000 fee for anyone applying for asylum. Increasing the state and local tax deductions. The package also includes an increase to the cap on state and local tax deduction, raising it from $10,000 to $40,000. After 5 years, it will return to $10,000, a departure from the initial House-passed bill. The issue was a major sticking point in the House, where the blue state Republicans threatened to withhold their support without the increase to deduction. But with no Republican hailing from blue states in the Senate, the upper chamber has been continuing with its own dynamics. Before the rule, taxpayers could deduct all their state and local taxes from their federal taxes, which some policymakers have said mainly benefits wealthy homeowners in states with high taxes, such as New York and California. But advocates for increasing the caps argue that the $10,000 cap is increasingly impacting middle-class homeowners who live in regions where property taxes are rising. Green energy policies. The final bill passed in the Senate would largely terminate numerous tax incentives for the 2022 Inflation Reduction Act for clean energy, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency programs that benefit customers. It would end tax credits for new and used electric vehicles. That's why Elon is mad. Installation of home EV charging equipment, and installation or energy efficient heating and cooling systems. The bill also ends Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which gives funding to nonprofit organizations providing financing for projects that reduce pollution, greenhouse gas emissions in communities. Existing contracts and grants under the program are not affected. Think back to what we talked about in Tennessee, in Memphis specifically. Restrictions on food stamps. The bill shifts the cost of SNAP or food stamps to some states. The program is currently fully funded by the federal government. Not every state can afford to manage a SNAP budget. Just so we know, we have some states that have more money that comes from the federal government than what they put out. They don't have it in the budget. But anyway, the federal government continues to fully fund the benefits for states that have an error payment rate below 6% beginning in 2028. States with error rates above 6% would be on the hook for 5 to 15% of the cost. States are also given some flexibility in calculating their share. The package also aligns with the initial House version on age requirements for able-bodied adults to qualify for SNAP benefits. Currently, in order to qualify, able-bodied adults between 18 and 54 must meet work requirements. Both the Senate and the House bills would update the age requirement to 18 to 64 with some exemptions for parents. Alaska and Hawaii could receive waivers for work requirements if it's determined that they're making good faith efforts to comply. Addressing the debt limit. This is where it gets interesting. The legislation would raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion, going beyond the $4 trillion outlined in the initial House-passed bill. Congress faces a deadline to address the debt limit later this summer. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has urged Congress to address the debt limit by mid-July. That's a week and some change from now, saying that the U.S. could be unable to pay its bills as early as August when Congress is on recess. By addressing the debt ceiling as part of the larger package, Republicans in Congress aim to bypass negotiating with Democrats on the issue. Unlike other legislation, or most other legislation in the Senate, the budget reconciliation process that governs the package requires a simple majority rather than a 60-vote threshold to move forward. Child tax credit. The current $2,000 child tax credit is set to return to the pre-2017 level of $1,000 in 2026. The tax credit will permanently increase to $2,200 under the bill, $300 less than the initial House pass hike. All I'm saying is Kamala was offering $6,000. That's all I'm saying. Limits on overtime tips and deductions. Now that they tried it with this one here, they marketed one thing and gave you something different. The bill would allow individuals to deduct a certain amount of tip wages and overtime from their taxes. The provisions would expire in 2028. The no tax on tips provision is in the spending bill would create a new deduction for tipped workers, eliminating what they owe in federal income tax. Tipped workers would still have to pay state and local income tax or payroll taxes. The Senate version varies from the initial House pass provisions on a key few points, including how much a worker could claim in deductions. The Senate proposal limits the deduction to $25,000, while the early House version was uncapped. Under the initial House measure, meanwhile, only people with an annual income of $160,000 or less would have qualified for the tipping tax break, while the Senate version phases out benefits for individuals whose income exceeds $150,000 or couples whose income exceeds $300,000. The bill seeks to permanently expand the basic standard deduction, which was nearly doubled in 2017. The increase here. Let's see who is still there. All right. Sorry for that long read. It's a long read. But anyway, so the thing that I'm going to say, what's crazy is the Senate version actually ended up being worse than the House version. A lot of people felt that, well, just in American politics anyway, people often feel that there's a bit more logic in the Senate than in the House, because the House is an influx of people coming in and out every 2 years versus the Senate, where there's folks that are there for 6 years. I don't really buy into that because I'm looking at people like Ted Cruz and Jim Jordan. I'm like, yeah, no, they just is crazy, right? And so people thought that the Senate version, when it got to the Senate, a lot of people were under the impression that they would make amendments to make the bill a bit more appealing to the working and middle class. We did a live some weeks ago where we went down the breakdown of the tax brackets and how working and middle class families are about to have their taxes go up even more. Because again, this was pretty much a big giant tax break for billionaires and then the top 1%, right? But anyway, the Senate decided, no, we're actually going to double down and make things worse. So even the whole no tips on wages or tax on tipped wages, the Senate kind of took what the House was actually trying to give. It was like, no, we're going to make some limitations to that. So pretty much the people who really benefit in all of this, again, are people who are super wealthy. Those who are kind of going to be on the receiving end of stuff that's not as great, people who depend on a lot of these services, whether it be things like Medicaid, whether it be SNAP. And mind you, this is an 887-page bill. Those are just the big items. There's a bunch of things in there that are getting cut. It's going to add about $5 trillion to the deficit, which again, for me, this is all confusing because I'm like, the whole purpose of DOGE was supposed to be to cut all the fraud and the waste and bring the budget back, right? Help us get into a surplus. We're going to start saving money. So we're going to fire all these random people and cut down these agencies because that's going to save money, only for you to go and pass this bill. When in reality, the justification for this bill is, boom, you have the $880 billion that's going to be cut from Medicaid in order to provide the tax cuts for the super wealthy. And in order to ensure that we're also going to be really good, you're going to have to cut some of these jobs out of the federal government. That's what that really was about. But we'll paint the narrative that we're cutting fraud and waste because everything is a contradiction at the moment. And so what's also interesting is I feel like a lot of people in the House and the Senate are moving as if they don't have to run again. That's why when people keep saying, oh, just wait till the midterms, I think people need to pay attention to the patterns we've seen. We've seen current administration do whatever they want. We've seen court orders be ignored. Who's to say there's going to be a midterm? Who's to say that even if there are midterms, that if things don't go the way that certain people up top like, that they will even validate those results, right? Remember that case we talked about? I want to say it was in, I don't remember what state it was in, but it was the black guy that was elected mayor and the people would not let him do his mayoral job. Right. We've seen that happen a few times. We saw, well, it was thrown out in Georgia, but we saw where in Georgia they were trying to pass the law where if the voting committee didn't like the results, they could change and challenge and do stuff. That got thrown out. But long story short, I think the idea of holding on to faith for the midterms is kind of a sitting duck approach. because there's no guarantee that there's going to be a midterm. There's no guarantee that even if there are midterms that everything will be certified. And this goes back to, again, when you have a lot of corruption and crazy people in charge, anything goes. And because everybody keeps getting on code with the nonsense and there's not a lot of kickback, who knows what it's going to look like in 2028. And like I said, that's why I said they played in our faces. I didn't buy any of the politicians who were doing the theatrics of, oh, this is bad, but then they still voted for it. Oh, I didn't like this bill, but I had to vote for it. Trump was over here making calls and threatening folks, and they all caved. And I'm like, y'all are all scary. I don't know why they letting this 80-year-old man punk them like that, because ain't no damn way, right? Any other time, y'all get an attitude when they're walking too slow in the mall. Now, all of a sudden, y'all are bowing and kissing this man's feet. Make it make sense. All right. I'm going to pause on that. I'm going to come back to it. Let me read some comments here. Dang, is my sound just tripping? What's up with these random eyes up in here? Can you guys actually see what the fudge is going on tonight? Can you guys actually see me now? I'm over this crap. I'm over it. Okay, I guess you guys can't see me. So, yeah, apparently we were supposed to share, but I guess it didn't share. Sorry, guys. I don't know. You know, when we start talking some real stuff, something always happens here. This is why In the News is back on Sunday. Man. Whatever. Okay. Let's keep going. So at least the screen is black and proud, like who said that? Tyler Hackner said. Oh my God, make it make sense. What up, Patricia Rogers? That's my auntie, y'all. I guess that means my grandpa's probably watching. What up, Grandpa, if you on here? And my Uncle Patrick and my Uncle Randy. What up to y'all? Okay, y'all can see me. Great. And you can hear me. Oh, everything want to work after I done read the article, after I done read for 20 minutes. Okay. All right. I'm going to shift gears here for 1 second. Essence, right? So I've seen some conversations about Essence Festival. Like I said, I was planning to go, but I already did too many trips and I was kind of tired and it just wasn't really on my plate. And I wasn't crazy over the lineup because they've kind of been circulating some of the same people for the last few years. So I was like, I'm good on Essence. But there's been a lot of conversations around the fact that people, one, it wasn't really heavily attended in comparison to previous years. There's been some conversations about whether or not the leadership really understands the essence of what Essence does as far as the fest and who it's for. So there's been some conversations around that. I think there's several factors as to why they may not have necessarily had a great year. I will say the last time I went, I had an excellent time. That was in 2018. And personally, I think that was their best year in modern times because I feel like as far as lineups, they had everybody under the sun, right? Thinking back, there was a set. It was Erykah Badu, Jill Scott, Anthony Hamilton, and the Roots and Kirk Franklin were in a set together. You had the Clark sisters. There was Snoop Dogg. There was this New Jack Swing segment with Teddy Riley that featured Keith Sweat, SWV, Guy, Aaron Hall. Eventually, Blackstreet came out. You had Fantasia. You had Mary J. Blige. There was Queen Latifah, and she brought out literally every female rapper that's out there. Missy Elliott, Salt and Pepper. I want to say Yo-Yo came out. And then they even did Brandy's I Want to Be Down remix with like MC Light and everybody that's on that. I can't remember if JJ Fad came out. I just remember that Queen Latifah, it was like every woman in rap was out there, minus like 5 or 6 people. So you had that portion. Janet Jackson was the headliner. I'm skipping some people. Oh, God. I can't even remember half the people that were there. There were so many. Escape was there. Oh my man, I'm missing so many people. First of all, I was drunk for half of it. But long story short, I say all that to say, it just had everybody you could think of that was on that ticket. It was an amazing experience to the point where you couldn't even see everybody. The events at the convention center were really, really good. I was on Regina Hall watch. If you don't know, Regina Hall is one of my favorite people in the world. Just one of my favorites for everything. I think she's just this hilariously beautiful, perfect being. She can do no wrong in my book. I was trying to get to her. I couldn't find her. But anyway, an amazing time. So that was the last Essence I went to. But as far as like some of the changes, I think what's happening too, and this is not even just Essence, because a lot of the festivals have been having like a lower attendance. I think one, there's an oversaturation of festivals, but I will say what has always separated Essence is that to me, Essence is the festival that's kind of tailored to a specific audience, right? I feel like Essence is kind of like that Black American auntie demographic, right? And I think in modern years, they've been trying to pull in the younger generations, and I say that just based on some of the people that have been in the lineups. You start to see like a Glorilla and stuff in there, which is cool. But the aunties that are going there because back in college they used to go to the Gerald Levert concerts. They're not going there for Glorilla, right? And that's nothing against her. I think she's fun, but I just think generationally she doesn't quite appeal to that demographic. And for me, I feel the core audience of Essence Festival is 35 and up. Yeah, you got some 20-year-olds that go and everything, but it's an older crowd. And so I think spending so much time trying to bring in some of these younger acts, which is great because again, the aunties and them are going to get older, and they're going to have to start preparing for that next group that's coming up, which is kind of like my age group folks. I get all that, but I think the effort to pull in a lot of younger attendees kind of isolated the older folks, which so like even this is not a diss to Nicki Minaj, but even like having Nicki Minaj headline some years back, I think again that was something to pull in a younger crowd because I don't know if she quite connects with older audiences. That's just me because I mean these are the crowds that are going there for Amazing Frankie Beverly, right? These are the crowds that love a Jill Scott set. I think Nicki has fun music. I don't know if it necessarily fits with the 60-year-old woman who's also having a reunion with her Delta Line sisters from 70 whatever year. You know what I mean? I think where they also messed up, they waited until almost the end of spring to announce who the lineup was. The year that I went, they announced it in January. And so you had 6 or 7 months to think about whether or not you wanted to go. And they've done this the last 2 or 3 years, this whole thing of waiting until the last minute to announce who's coming. Now, I will say a lot of people have been so loyal to Essence that they buy tickets without even knowing who's going. They just know as soon as the tickets go on sale, they buy the 3-day pass and they go for it. But in recent years, because the lineups have kind of been up and down, people want to know who's going to be there. And so I think waiting until April, May to say who's going to be there doesn't work because that only gives people really 2 months to decide. And by then, other things have taken place. Cowboy Carter tour is out. Kendrick and SZA are on tour. The Weeknd is on tour. I don't really know if that's really the same fan base. There's just other things happening. And so people start making other plans. So I think that is one of the issues. I don't like this current era of saturating everything into like a curated experience. You also have the conversation of influencers. Yes, times have changed. We got to incorporate everything and everybody. But a lot of the complaints that I saw from people who've gone to Essence year after year after year felt like there were so many things that were exclusive to only certain pockets of people. And the regular everyday person that comes out to Essence every year kind of felt like they were left out. You saw what happened with the super lounges. Normally what happens at Essence, you have the Superdome. They also have super lounge performances where there's a smaller venue for different artists that perform in the smaller venues, and you can either go to the super lounges or you can enjoy the big show on the big stage. But normally the ticket you get lets you into everything. So think back to when Escape first got back together. Before they did the Great Escape tour, their reunion was at Essence Festival, and I want to say 2015 or 2016, one of those 2 years. And their reunion performance was at the Super Lounge. And the reason why people always liked what Essence offered was once you bought a ticket to Essence, that ticket got you into everything. It got you into everything at the convention center. It got you into the super lounges. It got you to the main stage. This ticket was like, I got a golden ticket. Like it took you everywhere. But this year they made it so that the super lounge tickets had to be purchased separately, and they announced it last minute. And by the time it was announced, it was already sold out. And most of the people who even got those tickets are the people who either are like influencers or people who had connections. And so the person who flew in from Tulsa, Oklahoma, who was ready for a good time and normally is used to the super lounge ticket, you couldn't buy one. And I think that sucks. And so I think that really kind of screws things up. I think the bridges that have been burned with a lot of the vendors in New Orleans. And I want to say this too, because I've seen people say it's time to move it out of New Orleans. No, it's not. New Orleans has always been a very great host city for something like Essence. That's why it's been there since, 95 or 96? I think what makes Essence also work is the New Orleans experience. So when I went, yes, I enjoyed Essence, but I also enjoyed New Orleans and the people and the restaurants and the culture that's there. I think New Orleans is a great host city for something like Essence. Moving it from town to town, I think, would make the festival die. I think, or not die, but it will repurpose into something that's not recognizable. That rapport that exists between Essence and New Orleans is a good thing. And I think that's something they have to rebuild. Because I've been seeing the stories about the challenges between the vendors and Essence for like the last 2 or 3 years. And what's happening, it goes back to what I was saying about that curated experience where you're starting to prioritize, corporations and the big money versus the people. What makes New Orleans is the people, right? What makes that experience so great are the people who are born and raised there, the people who can bring that element of their aesthetic and their culture to that experience. When you start to franchise and water down and gentrify everything. And okay, perfect example is kind of like, Amazon has moved out into the DMV, right? They got these two big headquarter offices. And so when they first got here, the celebration was like, oh yeah, they're bringing jobs. Yeah, it's going to be great. They're going to bring jobs to the people. When in reality, all the really, 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 really good jobs, the ones that are paying six figures and $200,000 and this, that, and the third, all of those jobs were just people that already were in those positions and they just relocated from wherever to the DMV. So those jobs were never quite offered to the people in the area. That's kind of like what's been happening with Essence and the vendors, where they're bringing people from outside of the city, which is fine, but they're doing it at the expense of the people who are already there, the people who still service the city when Essence leaves. So I think that's been an issue. So yeah, I don't think Essence needs to move from New Orleans. New Orleans, I think, is a great host city. And I think, yeah, that's just you. When you think of Essence, you think of New Orleans. So why would you move that? Leave it right where it's at. And then where is it going to go? Right? I think, actually, I'm not going to do there because then we'll start fighting over whose city can't get what. And then again, I think you also need people in leadership who are rooted in the culture. I think people have an appreciation for the culture, but I think sometimes when you're not locked in and rooted and really understand certain things, there's some aspects that even when you mean well, you're just not going to quite get or quite understand. And I'm saying that from a place of love. And what I thought they would have done, because for me, I think the biggest challenge too is, again, like I said, I just think the lineup was not something I was too excited over. That's why I was like, well, I'm good on Essence. I'll go next year. Because Nas is one of my favorite rappers, but I don't want to see Nas in a stadium. Nas is for me when I'm doing some work and I got some music in the background. Nas, I don't want to see perform in a stadium. No disrespect. I think he's a legend, but I'm good. Maxwell is excellent, but Maxwell always does Essence. He's always there. Lauryn Hill had just did Essence, I think 2 years ago as a headliner. Even Janet, as much as I love her, they had Janet do 2018, which was great. And then she did it again in 2022. And then they had her cancel her New Orleans tour date to do 2024. I'm like, okay, oversaturation of the same people. These people give excellent shows, but people want variety. And it's fine to have one person or two that comes there a lot, because we know back in the day, Mary J. Blige did Essence almost every year. But that was fine because the other people on the ticket, you got a mix of everything. I think when you keep getting the same combination of the handful of people don't want to keep seeing the same show, especially, again, and this is not a dig to any of the performers, but, when you've seen people within 18 months, you're not really pressed to see them again unless you're a diehard fan. So I think that affects some of the things. And I don't know why they didn't just choose to go and pull all of the Lovers and Friends lineup. Right. So remember, Lovers and Friends got canceled in 2024 because of the bad weather. But that ticket had everybody and their mom on it. I think Usher was on that ticket, Sierra, TLC, Janet, Maya, Brandy, Monica, every person you can think of that would appeal to that 35 and up crowd, and even really the 20 and up crowd, as far as those who like to listen to what their mama and dad played in the car. Everybody on that ticket would have worked. You can pull off some of the ones like Backstreet Boys. They don't need to be at nobody's Essence, but and Luma D, she can go too. But it had a great lineup of everybody and everything. I think that's what kind of affected Essence in 2024, was because I felt like Lovers and Friends took all the people that would have been at Essence. But I feel like that would have been a great lineup even for this year. I don't know, but I've seen a lot of smoke for Essence this year. Hopefully they get it together. I just think you want to make sure you got the right people in the room that really understand what is there and what a gym Essence is. I think that's one of the reasons why Susan Taylor was really good at turning Essence into what it is. Now, there has been lots of changes in leadership. There's been people that have been ousted. There's people that have come in to replace last minute. There's things that take place. And we also know this also ties in with corporate sponsorships. Some of the smoke that Essence was receiving was that Target was one of their corporate sponsors. And I think that brings another conversation as far as even when you're talking sponsorships, because sometimes some of these people that sponsor are like, well, if we're going to sponsor you, you got to do this, or you can't do that, or you got to do that. I saw the list of things that were encouraged to not be spoken about at some of these panels with regard to racial equity and different terms like that. And I'm like, it's a lot going on over there. And then I saw Stephanie Mills had the open letter. She was not happy with her experience doing the Super Lounge. She pretty much said nothing was together. Sound was messed up. People were late. Communication wasn't together. And she wasn't able to give the show that she wanted to give. We saw that Lauryn Hill got on stage at 3 a.m. And this time it was not Lauryn Hill's fault. It was the show was just already behind. And so, because even Maxwell, from what I read, was on stage like after midnight. And just to give some context, when I was there, I think the latest we ever left the venue was 1 a.m. and that was the very last night. That was Sunday. That was Janet was the closer because even I was ready to go to sleep and go to. I was like, all right, Janet, how many more songs, Janet? I love you, but all right, come on, let's Rhythm Nation this on home. And even then, that was like the last one, but that was 1 a.m, right? They're normally pretty good at staying close to on schedule. Stuff happens, but that's that. So yeah, let me see what you guys are saying here. I don't think Lovers and Friends is happening anymore for somebody who just asked. Somebody said 2018 was the year after Escape reunited. Yeah, because 2017 was when I saw the Great Escape tour. But I want to say they had to have done Escape had to have done the Super Lounge in 2016 then, because 2017 was the tour. Or actually, wait, maybe that tour was the top of 2018. I feel like I went to the Escape show in November of 2017 because I feel like I went to the State of the World tour in November, and I feel like shortly after. No, that Great Escape tour had to be the top of 2018. I'm in my little calendar head, so it had to be top of 2018. So maybe it was 2017. Thank you, Harold. Somebody said yes, Regina Hall. You love your Regina Hall. I certainly do. You can't tell me nothing about Regina Hall. Oh, thank you. I forgot about that too. Somebody said way too expensive and bloated with vendors and foolishness. I will say the pricing is getting higher and higher too. Like they're gonna have to get to a point where, and it's not just Essence, it's everything. Especially now that the economy is kind of, we don't know where it's going. It's kind of a roller coaster. It's up and down. I'll talk about the Supreme Court decision in a little bit as well. Concerts, sporting event, y'all got to mark this stuff down. Why is everything so high? It's like ridiculous, right? Even going to the Beyonce show, parking was $80. I said, by the time I got in the venue, I didn't even, I mean, there were parking spots that were 40, but that was my first time parking at that stadium. So, they're like, oh, you got to get your parking pass before you go. Okay. So I didn't order the parking pass, $80. Right. So by the time I got there, I didn't want a t-shirt or nothing. I just came to see the show. Just went straight to my seat and sat down. Right. Man. Yeah. You got to make things affordable again. Somebody said, what is the Super Lounge? I think I talked about it, but it's just additional spots at the arena or at the stadium, at the Superdome, where you can see other shows. So in previous years, like Kiki Wyatt has done a Super Lounge show. Selena Johnson has done a Super Lounge show. And while they're doing their show, there may be another show on the big stage or the main stage with another artist. So say maybe, I don't know, maybe Faith Evans is on the main stage, but you've already seen her before, so you don't really want to catch her in that moment. And at the Super Lounge, Ralph Tresvant is doing a solo bit. You may go to that. So that's kind of what that is. Tyler Hackman said most people are broke. I think also with that, we got to look at the numbers of all these people who've lost their jobs. Especially, you just saw the report about Black women being the most affected by unemployment at the moment, as far as the firings and the rifts and the changes and cuts in government. And Black men, we're not too far behind. And so, that affects things. Who is the core demographic of Essence Festival? Black women, right? Let's see. Just Leah, exactly. It needs to stay in New Orleans. I wouldn't want to go to Essence somewhere else. Like, no disrespect, I would not want to go to no Essence Festival in Seattle. And I'm from Washington State. Like, what? I mean, I would go just to go home. But there's something about New Orleans that I think is really special. And I think sometimes you want to keep those things that make these places thrive the way that they thrive. It's like telling the people in Houston, we're going to move the Houston Rodeo to Denver. And it's no disrespect to Denver, but I'm just saying all these things work with their respective places. It goes back to that regional experience that we have. And I think when you keep doing this whole curated culture thing where you want to make everything this universal, generic, everybody has the same experience, it waters it down. Like, imagine if the Houston Rodeo just started bouncing in different cities, and Essence bounced in different cities, and Coachella went to different cities, and Roots Picnic went to different cities. Like, it takes away the aesthetic of what makes these events special to the location that they're in. Because then it just becomes, it's almost like a McDonald's of festivals. They bounce. It's nothing special about it. Let's see. Somebody said, what happened to the original CEO and founder, Susan Taylor? Susan Taylor actually started a different nonprofit that centers on mentoring. I want to say it's called Mentor Cares. I only know this because she has my phone number and I have hers. But I met her in 2023 when, if you listen to my podcast, Clarissa, the little girl that got all the mouth, at this point, Clarissa is grown and she was able to make it to the final round of national competition, and Susan Taylor just happened to be there. And then, oh, look, I'll show you my pictures. And she and I had this really great conversation about things, but she started a nonprofit called Cares Mentoring is the program, and they specialize on the importance of mentorship in the Black community. And I believe the nonprofit is based in New York, and they normally do a gala in October, so definitely check them out, support them with what they have going. It's a great organization. I do believe she was at Essence, because I want to say there was something they were celebrating. I didn't go, so I don't know. Let's see if I can find Susan Taylor real quick. Susan, where you at, Miss Taylor? This was my phone, October 2023 is when I went. All right, let's go a little bit more. It was actually a cool event. Like, Clarissa got me into a lot of doors. See, when you invest in the children, they amount to something and got you into places. We were at this gala. Mind you, Clarissa, she got introduced by Ruth Carter. Ruth Carter is the costume designer for Black Panther, the two-time Academy Award winning stylist or costume director. I was like, Gladys Knight was there, Ashanti. Mind you, this is one of my old kids who just, they did a competition and just thrived in it and won and kept winning. And then, yeah, let's see. I think I can share this, and then I would share the screen, but man, this thing wasn't working right, so I just hold the phone to it. I found it. This is okay. I'll get a better picture. Where's she at? Here we go. If you can see, boom, there's, oh, okay, wrong camera. There's Susan right there, right? To the far, I don't know who that dude is in the back, but yeah, so that was pretty cool. Good time, but she's very lovely. Okay, make America affordable again. I agree. Somebody said that. Somebody said I should have took a lift. No, because I live too far. Well, I don't live too far, but the problem is that stadium just sucks getting in and getting out to begin with. And Lyft, I don't think I ever would have got there. So it is what it is. Let's see. Somebody said, this is why we stay broke. Exactly. Somebody said, cutest brag ever. I don't tell y'all half the cool stuff I get to do, right? I be trying to keep stuff under wraps. Some of it I'm trying to save for the podcast as we get there. But yeah, I don't like telling everything. Yeah, life is great, but life is still lifing at the same time, right? Let's see. Somebody said, yeah, Beyonce should refund me for the parking ticket. I'm going to call her too. I don't got her number, but I can pretend. Thank you, Universal Love 878 for sharing this. They said Essence organizers fired a Black woman named Gina Montana, who kept the local culture from New Orleans in the marketplace from 1995 until the early 2000s. They fired her without warning. I didn't know anything about that, but thank you for sharing. I mean, that kind of paints the picture. And like I said, with a lot of things, and this is not even just Essence. I think this is a conversation because we're seeing, I forgot. I'm about to get cussed out. My road dog Whitney had offered to give me a ride to the show, but I was already en route because I had to go to the dealership to handle some other logistics. And so I was like, once I go to the dealership, I'm just going straight to the show. But my road dog was definitely going to give me a ride because that's what friends are for. By the way, I don't know if you heard the podcast episode. You're mentioned in it a few times, by the way, the new episode. Anyway, what was I talking about? Damn, I was saying something. Oh, okay. So anyway, I was saying, even when it comes to just like people that move into different cities, I think one of the things that's affecting a lot of cities when you have that conversation of transplants is that people are not even moving to cities anymore and embracing the culture that's there or trying to be a part of the communities that are there. They move and they don't even accommodate. They move and restructure and take over and then kill the culture. I think that's kind of happened in New York. It's been happening in DC. It's Atlanta, oh, it's been Atlanta for the longest. Like people that are born and raised in Atlanta can tell you Atlanta is cool, but it's not what it was in the early 2000s and the 90s, right? LA can tell you the same thing. I'm talking about people who are born and raised in these places can tell you how much their cities have changed. I think Houston is going through it, and it's nothing against people bouncing around because hell, technically I'm a transplant to DC, right? I moved here when I was 18, but I didn't come here and try to take over and change stuff. I was like, I saturated in all things DC, right? Even started working with the kids. And so I think that's something I think people need to think about, especially when you get into these positions and you work at like a festival or you do something that's near and dear to a region. You got to understand what the people in that region want. You just can't show up and say, well, this is what I'm going to do. And this is how it's going to be because I think this is what's great. Man, let's see. Okay. See, exactly. Messing up the picture, right? um, let's see. Somebody said I drive around the longest time looking for cheaper parking. The problem with the parking at the stadium is that this it's hard to get to it. And when you get there, you're just sitting in traffic. I think I was 6 minutes away from my parking spot, but it took me an hour and a half to get to it because it's just traffic is just there. The way that it's built, the traffic route just sucks. So you really don't want to circle for parking because you'll never get into the show. It reminds me of, my God, there's another venue called dang, what is that place called? It's in Virginia. It's right by Dumfries. Oh God, Jiffy Lube Experience, whatever that crap is called. It's like this outdoor amphitheater, and there's only one way in, one way out. And if you go there for a concert, you have got. If the concert starts at 8, you got to make sure you're parked before 6 because you will miss the show. When Janet did Together Again, the first leg, second leg, somebody must have told her, just go to the arena, please. The first leg, there were so many people that didn't even get in the show because they never made it to the venue because the traffic was just crazy. It was like a 2-lane road. And mind you, the amphitheaters, because they have the yard, it was like 25,000 people. And so a lot of folks, my friend Rob didn't even get in the show. He was so pissed because it was like he bought the ticket and I think he texted me during Rhythm Nation like, man, I just now got my parking spot. Mind you, this is a 2-hour show. Somebody would have died. Seriously, somebody would have got stabbed after that, right? Yeah, parking sucks. Okay, I gotta keep going, y'all. Okay, yes, Crazy Homebody Girl, Jiffy Lube Live. Royna W said, hey, that's what the Mexicans are saying about the expats from America moving to Mexico City. I saw that, and they were saying like because of what's happening, a lot of them have like really nice remote jobs and they move to places in Mexico, but the way that they're doing things, it's running up the cost of living for the actual residents in the area, right? It's like you got to make sure you're not going over and colonizing other people's spaces. This is why when folks are like, oh, go to the motherland, we'll make a black-only colony in Ghana. I'm like, that sounds like you're going over there and just bringing the United States there and then building a wall and then keeping people out and making stuff only exclusive to you and those who came from stateside. So it's almost like you're going to do the same thing we fight against. That's just how I feel. All right. Moving right along, folks. That's just how I feel. Okay, Elon, back to him. So, Elon was pissed about this big, beautiful bill passing. He felt like, and I'm not going to lie, as much as I can't stand this man, I technically agree with him not being happy about this bill passing. I don't like the bill because, again, it punishes the middle class and the working class for not being rich. It gives the rich more money that they didn't ask for. It pretty much extends the Paul Ryan tax code or the Trump tax code from 2017, same thing. Our taxes are still going to be screwed up. Wealthy folks get a tax break, and then Medicaid gets gutted and cut down, and other things get chopped, and the only people who benefit again are the super wealthy and corporations, and everybody else has to be collateral. Now, that's not really his reasoning. His reasoning, like I said, is that piece about the getting rid of the tax credit on green, I don't want to say greenhouse, electric vehicles and everything with that, and charging stations and all that. That affects what happens with his Tesla business. So now he's mad. He and Orange Man have been going back and forth on Twitter and Truth Social for a few days, and Elon has decided he's starting his own party, right? He's going to start the America Party. And then it's interesting because I'm watching all these people rally behind him like, yeah, man, we're tired of it. And yeah, the Republicans did this and we're going to start our thing. And so everybody's rallying behind him all of a sudden. And I'm like, is there like selective memory and memory loss here, because have we forgot this man literally just spearheaded, right, the cancellation of tons of programs and grants that benefit each and every one of us. Almost every service that we have has a cut to it, and his name is attached to it, right? We watch, as of right now, I mean, it's in the courts and stuff is going on, but now with the Supreme Court ruling, I guess it kind of gets finalized. You've watched at least 260,000 working Americans get fired, not because they suck at what they do, not because they've done anything wrong, but because they work at a federal agency that was providing some kind of service or some kind of regulation. And hey, we got to cut things down because of fraud and waste. And so, he spearheaded all that, got rid of all these folks. Now, meanwhile, he got to make sure that he had $38 billion in government contracts for his private businesses. But somehow, the person who's working at the Department of Education, they're tied to too much waste and fraud. So F them kids, because Elon needs his check. So I'm kind of like, did y'all forget that this man, in addition to that, is a freaking racist? Like, first of all, I don't even have to expound on that. It's apartheid Elon, okay? Then the Nazi crap. The man is a horrible person, right? Something should tell you at this point that anytime he hops onto something, it's for his own personal gain, his own personal climb. You could clearly tell that when he latched on the Orange Man during campaign season, right? And it doesn't help that you got some people who really believe that, he may have possibly hacked the election. I'm just waiting for more evidence to come out before I start talking about that. You watch this man interfere with everything happening with Ukraine when you're talking about his Starlink services, because Ukraine uses Starlink for their internet and their satellites. And of course, all of a sudden, once we get the nonsense with Ukraine and Russia, Ukraine's equipment and stuff ain't working because Starlink ain't on. You got that going on. And so my thing is this. In addition, he also believes we're not working enough. He wants us to work more hours. This is why all of a sudden he kind of somewhat indirectly spearheaded to make everybody go back to the office stuff too, right? And he's just a vile person. Just everything just terrible, right? So for me, it's like I'm enjoying watching him and Orange Man whack each other, but no, him starting a political party would not do anything for the working class or the middle class. It wouldn't be anything about that. It's something, whatever little harebrained scheme he has at the moment. It's not about the people. Do not fall for the nonsense. Because they're already trying to paint him to be a hero, and I'm like, he's not. He's not. He's a horrible person. He's not even like, he has no leverage to be dedicated to anything in this country because he can go anywhere. He's not worth 400 billion anymore, but he's still worth a few $100 billion. And so he can go and do whatever he wants. Who's to say that he runs whatever party he runs and then stuff doesn't go the way he would want for it to go, and he bounces and goes to another country and does some more stuff after? He's already messed up our stuff, right? Our guardrails are all screwed up. Federal services are all screwed up, right? You got measles outbreak has returned. That doesn't really have a lot to do with Elon. That's just the stupidity of folks who think everything is a conspiracy. And then you put somebody like RFK in front of Human Health Services, right? Interesting. Measles at the highest rate it's been since 2000. God. I don't know, y'all. I'd be over it sometimes. I really be over it. Anyway, let me read some comments, and then I'm going to talk about this Supreme Court decision. Actually, I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court decision first. So sticking to the same topic, the Supreme Court has ruled that Orange Man can continue with the federal mass firings, right? There's been a lot of litigation where there was some unions, I want to say of 12 federal agencies that sued to kind of pause and stop some of the firings. And this was saving some people's jobs. And again, when we talk about federal government, it's not limited to Washington, D.C. There are federal jobs all over the United States. So this affects people in every state. And so there have been all kinds of stays and everything. Pretty much this Supreme Court ruling, it pretty much overrides everything that all the lower courts have ruled. One of the quotes that came out that I'll say, they say, we express no view on the legality of any agency, RIF, or reorganization plan produced or approved pursuant to the executive order and memorandum. So what they're saying specifically with that is that there's still a possibility that the Supreme Court may rule against a specific plan that may appear to make it impossible for an agency to do its actual job, but that's going to be a case-by-case basis. So in the meantime, here's the grandfathered blanket decision that everybody falls under. So all the different agencies, whether it's the Department of Education, whether it's the VA, whether it's the CDC, whether it's, the whatever agency that's out, there's tons of agencies, Department of Transportation and Treasury, all of the different cuts, the risks that may have been in litigation, this pretty much confirms that if they want to fire everybody, go for it. As long as you can prove that the agencies can still function. That's what they're saying. But the problem with that is as we start getting into this case-by-case function with these different agencies, it's going to have the Supreme Court backlogged, trying to hear all these different cases on top of everything else that's floating around. Now, Ketanji Jackson was the only Supreme Court justice who said no orange man cannot just fire all these people. And the issue is, when it comes to this kind of litigation around these federal positions, this is supposed to be something that's done through an act of Congress. We've never had a moment where, through executive order, you could just chop down all these agencies in this manner. This has never happened before, and so that's the issue. But the Supreme Court has just given this man permission to do so. Let me see. And what I find interesting, one of the ones that will definitely be hit the hardest is the VA. Now, initially, when these orders came out, and I'm not talking about the Supreme Court, but the orders from the Trump administration in February telling all these agencies to chop down, reconsolidate, offer early retirements and buyouts and all that other stuff, they were summoned to pretty much say, hey, 80,000 people need to be removed. 80,000. Now, that's since changed to 30,000. But just to give you guys some numbers, between January 1st and June of 2021, there were 623,000 surgery consults just within the VA. That's just people going and getting to a doctor and they're saying, oh, well, maybe we might need to give you a knee replacement, or might need to give you this, might need to give you that. This is not the actual surgery. This is just the consultation. 623,000. Right? And that's just between January and June of 2021. That's just how broke up our veterans are. No disrespect to those who serve the country, but again, you have people who dedicate 20, 30 years to military service. All of those PT mornings stationed in South Korea in the cold, in 12-degree weather, doing PT out in the trenches and all the different things, and having to jump out of helicopters and do this and be by artillery shells that are exploding, and being in these old warehouses that have all these different toxins and chemicals in the air that are making people sick, and so on and so forth. We have hundreds of thousands of veterans who need medical care. And so the fact that, again, 623,000 medical consultations just for surgery in a 6-month period. And again, we're talking about the VA, an agency or a service that they mean well, but because they are crucially underfunded and don't have enough staff, they don't have the same turnaround time as going into like private industry. The thing about the VA is that it's a free service for veterans. So when veterans need to go and they need to get a hearing aid, or they, somebody has breast cancer, they can go get surgery for that. Somebody needs a knee replacement. Somebody has to get half of their thyroid taken out, all these different things. The VA will provide that. But because there are so many who need the service, it's a very backlogged service. So why would you cut more people? And it goes back to what I'm saying. The idea is cut it all. Because again, when we already know how this is all going, and this is not just for the VA, the goal has been, and we've been saying this since 2018, right? The idea of cementing, right? You cement, you deregulate, and you privatize for profit. And that expands across all the federal agencies. That's why we've noticed that most of the people who have been put in charge of a lot of these federal agencies are idiots, have no kind of correlation or understanding of the work that they've been put in charge of, because it's not their job to make sure that that agency does well. It's their job to make sure that that agency fails so that they can justify why they need to gut it or privatize it, right? This is why you got the wrestling lady in charge of education. This is why we had somebody who's literally in charge of FEMA not know that there's a thing called hurricane season, right? This is the kind of nonsense that we have. And so the other aspect, again, is the plan was put a bunch of loyalists to Orange Man in these positions where they're never going to go against the grain. This is why you watch Patel all of a sudden shift gears when it came to Epstein, right? He has to, he has to play his role. And so this is not about saving. It's not about cutting waste and fraud, because otherwise they wouldn't have passed the big, beautiful bill and all that nonsense. Again, it's about, like we said, cementing, deregulating, privatizing for profit. They want the U.S. Postal Service, lots of money to be made there. They want public education, specifically K through 12 education, because when you have tens of millions of children who need education, if you could charge for it, think of all the money that could be made. There's money to be made there. There's money to be made in all of this. When you're talking about what's happening with National Weather Service and everything, who was one of the faces who was trying to utilize some of their technology and some of their software to deal with our weather and the stuff that happens with meteorologists? Mr. The America Party, Elon Musk, right? Everything is tied to somebody. Follow the money. Follow the money that answers everything every single freaking time. So it's just crazy. And the thing is, like, none of this has been ironed out, which is why even with them trying to do the things that they do, they got some of the dumbest people in charge. They can't even do that right, which is why half the agencies, then they got to go in and rehire people, because now the agencies can't function because, like we said, with that Supreme Court order, the agency has to be able to function. And that's where the ball is being dropped. So again, the idea, cripple the agency, then justify why you need to get rid of it. It's crazy. I saw a piece where it was saying that which department? There's a department that's supposed to be gutted and out of here by December 25th. Oh, FEMA. The goal. December 2025 is supposed to be the end of FEMA, according to this administration. That's the goal. Their goal was push it to the states, let the states deal with disaster relief. And the problem is, like we said, when we go back to that article we read, when the screen wasn't working and everything was black, states that have that 6% threshold and above, when it comes to what they need from the federal government, they don't have money for disaster relief. A state like Mississippi can only get hit by so many hurricanes in the same year and have the funding to cover the damages. Same for a state like Oklahoma, same for a state like West Virginia. And this is not to down and attack those states, but it's just this whole conversation of putting it back to the states is setting these things up to fail so that things can be privatized. This is all in the plan. Like, this is all Project 2025, and some of this is before Project 2025. Right? And so again, we've seen this pattern before where you let an agency underperform, or you let something underperform and then you defund it. That was the No Child Left Behind program from Bush, right? Think back to what happened with public education. They decided to mandate standardized testing and say, these are the thresholds that all the education programs need to meet for the students. And by 2014, all students need to be proficient, or December of 2014, all students need to be proficient in reading and math by this specific date. And every year that we have these standardized tests, and each state is going to have their own version, but it's all mandated through No Child Left Behind. The state needs to meet this threshold. The school districts need to meet this threshold. If they don't meet that threshold, they lose funding. What happens when they lose funding? Let's just say we have a school of, let me see, my high school had about 1,800 students when I was there. Let's just say my high school, Spanaway Lake High School, right? Let's say they have the mandated test. 1,800 students take this test. Let's say the school underperforms. And let's say the rival high school, Bethel High School, also underperforms. And the other rival high school, Graham Kapowson, also underperforms. And then Challenger, which was kind of like the alternative school, I ain't trying to be shady, but there's already an expectation with that school as well. Let's just say they all don't do well. Now it means Bethel Public Schools, you guys are getting punished because your 4 high schools did not meet the threshold. So we're not giving you as much money to operate with this year. You're going to get a little bit less, but you're still expected to perform the same task. And so now these 1,800 students that go to my high school would still be expected to meet the threshold, but with less resources, right? That's kind of how No Child Left Behind worked on a national level. And this is why you had what they called the cheating scandal in Atlanta, where the teachers literally were like, every year we're not meeting the threshold. We keep losing funding. We can't lose anymore. You had teachers go and pretty much cheat because they were trying to save the schools, save the students. And you saw them go to jail, unfortunately, for what they did. And so that's the reality, right? Nonsense. Just a bunch of idiots. Okay, back to the chat. Somebody said, how much does AFRAM cost? AFRAM is free in Baltimore. That's one of my favorite things to go to. See what I mean? Now, I will say, I don't know how they fund it or what happens with sponsors, but AFRAM is also a lot smaller. It's like a 2-day weekend festival. That's the African-American festival in Baltimore. But, this year they had, Patti LaBelle as the headliner. I can't remember who else was there. I didn't get to go. I want to say JT was on the lineup too, and some other people, a few days. But I feel like, personally, I think Baltimore does a really great job of keeping their people included, whether that's Artscape, whether that's AFRAM. They have a really cool art district. They've been really good with, even just like, well, I will say they are doing some development I ain't too crazy over. But either way, I think they do a great job of incorporating the people as the city goes through the change, because Baltimore is going through the change. It's a different kind of change that I don't think mirrors a lot of other cities, just because of how Baltimore is laid out. But yeah, so there's that. Let me see here. Harold said, how are you going to start an American party as a South African? I don't know, because for some reason, I'm tired of all these people. Everybody irritating. Did I tell y'all this story this time? I think speaking of irritating, I think I told this in the podcast one time. One time my dad dragged me so bad. I think I had to be like 16 or 17. I might have been 18. I don't know. But I can't remember what was happening. But I remember I was standing in the doorway and I was mad at my parents about something. I don't remember what it was. They pissed me off about, maybe I couldn't go somewhere or something. And so I was like, something, man, because it gets irritating. Like I told them that whatever they were doing was irritating. Now, mind you, my dad and my mom were like laying in the bed watching TV. And my dad kind of hopped up, irritating. And then he went down this long list of all the things that I do that's irritating. Irritating is when I have to tell you more than once to cut the grass. Irritating is when I told you to clean the shed 3 months ago. You went to Savannah for the whole summer and come back and it still ain't done. Irritating is when I go in the kitchen and them dishes are still in the sink. Irritating is when I look at the phone bill and it's still high because you don't know how to take calls after 9 p.m. That's back when, you had to do the calls after 9 p.m. And he just kept going. Then he started like putting emphasis on the syllables. Irritating. I was like, he was cooking me so bad. My mom was just in the bed, just laughing. My little brother was in the room because I don't normally get in trouble, so he was enjoying all this. My dad dragged me for like 5 minutes. I had to just stand there and take it. I couldn't say anything, and I'm like, dang, because them irritatings, he started getting mad for real. I'm like, okay, he looked like he about to get up and swing. I don't think he want to say any more irritatings, but no, he just irritating. So anyway, it brought up a story. Just brought that back up. By the way, it's the 10-year anniversary of his death on Friday. Crazy how time flies. I remember when I did a video telling you guys that he had passed. So yeah. Okay. Somebody said No Child Left Behind was a mess. It certainly was, because we see the results of that on social media every day, because people don't have critical thinking skills anymore. I don't know what the heck is in the water. Everybody just be slow as I don't know what. Naya said, man, PT in the snow in South Korea was no joke. My mom's knees are jacked up from doing that, because when she used to be at Camp Casey, and being outside and it's negative 10 degrees and you're crawling and doing all that stuff, you may not feel it in your 20s, but it catches up to you in them later years. It's also crazy. So my mom had a crew that was at Camp Casey, Korea. It was her friend Sakitha, her friend Barbara, and like 2 other people, and also my father. That's when they were still kind of like newlyweds. I was just born, but I was living in Savannah, Georgia. Camp Casey is on the DMZ. Like it's a DMZ kind of military base. So North Korea is right there, South Korea is right there, and it's kind of a role where you're kind of keeping an eye on the border. But anyway, everybody in that crew has passed except for my mother, which is crazy. Which is sad. Like her whole crew is gone. I remember we went to Detroit for the funeral in 2019 for Sakitha, which was like her best friend. That military life, and I mean, everybody had some kind of cancer, or my father had scleroderma. My mother had cancer a few times, but fortunately, hers is in remission. She had thyroid cancer, and she had something else in her stomach before, so she has half a thyroid. Just take all these special medications to kind of keep her weight regulated, so she doesn't need to blow up or slim way down. So yeah. It's crazy. Military. There's a place in my heart for people who are willing to take a bullet for this country. I just hate that those in charge send our troops out there for nonsense and have us doing things that really don't protect our freedoms, but more so serve the special interests. And I think a lot of people in the military are kind of tired of the shenanigans with the leadership as well, where it's kind of like people have signed on to literally put their life on the line, and then you treat the troops like just like anything. You cut the VA like crazy, right? Now, I will say, I think Orange Man did give a raise to those in the military, but what's a raise if you come back with half a leg and then you can't get service anywhere, right? And I don't wish that on anybody. I'm just saying. Piano Kid said, how do you stay sane during all this? I try to not sit and watch the news, but also stay in the know, but it's also it's all over social media too. Can't get away from it. Like I said, especially after the election, I said, observe, but don't overindulge. That's how I've been doing it. Now, I know we still do these lives, but honestly, I check out. When it's not live time, I'm not paying attention to half the stuff going on. And then when I know that I'm going to do a live, I give myself a day or two to kind of catch up on everything, because I'm not sitting and saturating in this crap either, which is why I'm like, and shout out to, she's in Atlanta. She's my IG friend. We always talk, but I saw your comment. I didn't get to respond to it, but she was saying on the last live when I was talking about how we can't just spend our lives living in fear and living in gloom and doom and just woe is me and just waiting for the worst, because we only got so many breaths, right, in this lifetime. Once you're out of breath and once the heart stops, that's it. So you still got to live. But she was just saying how that kind of motivated her, like to just really like re-approach things, because this is disturbing. It is depressing. It is not motivating. It does make you say, what's the point? Why invest in things? But I'm like, look, life is too short. So I'm going to live, right? And that's why, I did me some trips and vacations, and I make my music. I go and do a podcast and sit here and chop it up with you guys on a Tuesday. I just think if we sit and saturate in all of the bad, then you don't even give yourself opportunity to see the good that is still out there that may not even have anything to do with the stuff that's happening. I don't want that to be a pass for people to be blatantly ignorant and just let stuff happen, because I still think you need to tap in. I still think you need to be aware of how things are happening, but you have to do it in a way that's good for your mental health, right? Because again, we don't want to start dying of young ages because of hypertension and stress. Because yeah, not me, especially on my mom's side. All the men in my family died before 59, except for 2 people. So not me, not I, said the cat. So yeah, let's see. Where are we at? Somebody said vets are going to be the one to snap. I just hope they snap with the right person. Okay. Oh, y'all are dragging Elon, of course. What up, Avocado Queen? Hi, Calvin. Can't wait to watch tomorrow. Love from Chicago. Chicago's a fun city too. I got to go back. I went in 2022 and had an amazing time. Actually, I shot my album covers in Chicago, both of them, both for tomorrow and after yesterday. This guy Vince did the photo shoot, and it's coming out. I just haven't done them, but it's funny because the behind the scenes of the after yesterday cover, that's the one with the blue suit. First of all, I think we did the shoot in late March of 2022. March in Chicago is not warm yet. It's still cold. And I just remember half of it we shot on a rooftop. And so I'm walking through this hotel with just the blazer on. There's nothing here. You get nips and stuff out. It is freezing. And I already feel stupid because I'm walking through the hotel, because I had a room at the hotel to do change and stuff. But like, then you got to get to the spot to take the picture. It was so cold. And I'm walking through like some diner and like the dining hall or wherever they eat at the restaurant. Everybody's like staring. And they're like, who is that? And I'm like, I felt so silly. Anyway, that was a fun day. Chicago's a great place. What up, Linda? She said, so what will we do? I don't know what this is about. Oh, is this about Elon? I just think if this is about politics and what should be taking place, well, one, emphasis on what's happening locally, emphasis on some of these, because even with the conversation of being cemented, a lot of the shenanigans that's taking place is because we had lots of local positions that were, people got into office into local positions, and then they appointed people that would be loyalists to their nonsense. Some of these people that are in these local positions got to go. So I'd say really lock into what's happening locally, pay attention to some of these grassroots organizations that are actually doing the work and giving the actual information. Because right now we're in a battle of combating misinformation and disinformation amongst the masses. Because we now consume information differently, critical thinking is not as valued as it once was. People don't want to spend a lot of time to understand concepts and origins or cause and effect. Everything's quick. TikTok is great because it can share information, but TikTok also works against the collective to an extent because we're getting our information faster and faster and faster, but without actual, the backing, without the context, without the knowledge. Like I told you, the annoying thing that I don't like about when I do deep dives, because I do very extensive ones. Like they take a really long time because we really dive deep. It doesn't always connect with everybody. There's some folks who do like get to the point already. Nothing more annoying is like, I remember doing the So What Happened with TLC episode, and we're talking about So What Happened with the 3D album. Somebody's like, simple, left I died, boom. I'm like, no, it's not that simple, because there's more than that. Like, that's one piece of it, but there's so many other things that happen. So stuff like that like drives me crazy, but that's where we're at. So politically, people have to really understand cause and effect and have to almost be re-educated and understand educating does not mean you just go to college or you have a teacher giving you a lecture, but educating meaning understanding all aspects of everything, which is why myself and I think a lot of other people that talk politics or community-oriented conversations on these platforms try to go and we'll pull up a law and try to dissect it, like kind of like when we did the opportunity zone breakdown, because that was something that they kept touting as something that was helping Black folks, when in reality it was speeding up the process of gentrification. So like breaking down that legislation piece by piece by piece by piece, like you're gonna have to tune in and lock into like that kind of work. So yeah, locking in locally, and then watching where your money goes. I really think like what I've kind of been impressed with the Target boycott is the consistency of how people are like, nah, nope, not yet. And I think using whatever avenue you have to make your voice heard works. I think the Target boycott is doing what it does. Target's still tripping. They thought they were slick trying to give their money to the churches, but everybody got to do whatever they can do at this point. And I think finding space in community is the most important thing. Everybody needs to be in a space where they feel supported. I love the people that I consider my community. That would probably be, that's my friend Whitney, right? That's my friend Tanae, who also has my godson. That's, if you know from the podcast, that's Ava and her husband, who have 3 of my godchildren. I got a lot of god kids, right? I got a whole clan. I almost don't need. And then it's like my friend Javon, my friend Breon, my friend James. I'm skipping some, my friend Dura, Rob. It's like, now everybody has their different role, but like that community. Then there's like the elders. Then there's like my godmom. There's this lady, Miss Mary, that was like this older lady that still lives in the neighborhood where my community center was. Then there's like the parents of the kids that I used to work with. There's that group. And there's actual kids that I work with who are no longer children. Half of them are like 25 and stuff. Community. People that have your best interests in mind, where you guys can support each other, where there's that interdependent relationship, where there's that camaraderie, where if you need to check out because work is crazy or life is lifing, where you can go to that person and just laugh or do crazy stuff. Like I know me and my friend Whitney have random moments where we will just sit in the kitchen and just chat it up, right? We may not have seen each other for 2 or 3 days, and then we'll just chop it up, laugh about a bunch of silly things, and that's it. Every friend has like a different role. With Ava from the podcast, they have their own nonprofit. And so every now and then she'll call to pick my brain about different ideas on how to make her nonprofit, the work a bit smoother with her board and everything. Because I'm not on the board of her nonprofit, but I always give like advice and stuff like that. I just think community is the most important thing. You need to be around people who understand how you see things and are not in your way. Society's already detrimental to all of us collectively, right? This is a very individualistic space we live in. This is a very me, myself, and I, what I got. Even how people vote in the last few years, it's all about F everybody else, I'm gonna get mine. We watch people vote out of spite now. They're not thinking about how things affect folks. They're just talking about themselves. If you follow me, you know I've been saying when I vote, I'll talk for me. I consider what is great for me as a person, but I also consider what is great for Black people collectively. I think of the senior citizens, right? Because how can you possibly sleep at night with the idea of somebody who may be 80 years old, who may not be as mobile, who may not even be able to go to the bathroom by themselves, and just leaving them to figure it out for themselves? Or maybe they've also run out of retirement money because they didn't have enough saved up. Like, how can you sleep at night knowing that that's happening? And so I think of senior citizens, I think of the children and education and how that affects things. I think of infrastructure. I think of where that affects global standing within the conversation of peace. I ain't trying to go to war with nobody. I don't like being in a DC or New York, and every time a president, whether it's Biden or Obama or Trump or whoever, send a drone somewhere, I got to sleep with one eye open because I'm waiting for the great white flash. No. So I think of all those different things, right? But there's a lot of people who don't think of all that. There's a lot of people who one issue voter, if they don't got their issue, too bad. Sorry. Got to teach you a lesson. And so now we're living through collateral of a lot of nonsense because everybody was trying to teach different folks a lesson. And I'm like, what? The problem is you have it mixed up. You were wasting so much energy and time on somebody else that, as far as you can't teach a political party a lesson. They don't care. Like, so it's kind of like learning to utilize the leverage you have to get what you want. How you teach the lesson, you stop donating, right? You don't give them any money. You notice when the money is funny, you start getting a million texts. You start getting tons of emails. They start coming out there begging. They start showing up to the churches. Now all of a sudden they know all the words to Amazing Grace, right? And when there's no money and there's nothing coming in, there's no money to advertise. And they can't really run and have the same big campaign because not enough money is. Think of all the people who suspend their campaigns because they didn't raise enough money, right? They got to quit, right? The message hasn't changed, but they don't have enough to pay the people that are canvassing or to pay for this and things. There's so many things that can take place. But again, so many people spent their time trying to punish all the wrong folks. And then who actually ended up getting punished at the end? All of us. That's collateral. A mess. I didn't mean to get on my soapbox, but yeah, great question. Totally incompetent folks running agencies? Of course. That's exactly what it is. Um, Somebody said my dad turned into Julius from Everybody Hates Chris. I mean, my dad was very frugal. He did not believe, man. Like I told you, I got my first pair of Jordans at 31, and it wasn't because I bought them. It was because they Nike was a sponsor for one of the centers, and they gave some shoes away. My dad would not buy me Jordans as a kid. I used to get so mad because, mind you, like my dad had a boat. A nice boat. He had a bass tracker. My parents had a nice car, but they did not believe in overpriced clothes. He would not buy me Jordans. I didn't have a lot of name brand clothes until I was in high school. But as far as sneakers, I could wear Adidas, I could do K-Swiss, Reeboks, but Jordans, don't ask. You're not getting them. He was not doing it. It was absolute no. Even getting a haircut. He used to make me go to King's Barbershop, this is in Washington State. This is right off of, it's in Tillicum, right by Joint Base Lewis McCord. I had been going to King's Barbershop on and off since I was like 6 or 7. That's the Koreans to cut your hair. And so once I found like the black-owned barbershops, because my friend Jason had a barbershop, and then there was Ken Lowe's at Tacoma Mall. I don't know if it's still there or not, but there was like the black people barbershop. I'm like, I want them to cut my hair. Because King's is $7. Like we ain't spending no $25 on no haircut. You get it for $7, right? All right. So yeah, my dad was frugal. He did not believe in just throwing money anywhere, which may have rubbed off on me to an extent. I only really spend money on food, and I'm learning to spend it on experiences, but I'm not very materialistic. Like I told you, the car that I bought, I'm gonna have that car for the next 10 years. I'm not really into clothes. Y'all see what I be wearing on the lives. I be in like the same handful of t-shirts all the time. What else? If I spend money on anything, it's in like projects that I'm passionate about. So I'll spend top dollar on like recording equipment and stuff, or keyboards and stuff. But like, you're never going to see me paying for a section at the club. I'm not spending $400 on a bottle. That's just where I'm at. Anyway. Where are we at here? Exactly. Life is short. I'm learning because it goes by so fast. Like every time I see my old kids, it freaks me out because they're now old. A lot of them are older than the age I was when I started at the center. I'm like, you're supposed to be like 14. What do you mean you're 27? What? So yeah, man. Okay. Just Lee said, community is key, especially during this time. Exactly. Like what's kept me sane is just being close to everybody that I value or have that love for. Hey Calvin, it's Amanda, and I agree with you. What's up, Amanda? What up, Xylan artist? Tillicum. Yeah, Piscean Beauty is Tillicum, but not with a K, with a C. All right. Okay. Oh, I forgot. I got, what is this? Oh, Nicki Minaj. I forgot. Okay. Don't take that the wrong way. I just don't like talking about her too often because, sorry, Nicki fans, y'all do too much. Y'all be ready to fight over the simple things. All right, real quick. As far as the Nicki Minaj bit that I've seen, and I don't really talk about her a lot because I don't follow her enough to really have the full scoop. So if I got something wrong, please correct me in the chat. But I see that, at least I haven't been on Twitter in a few hours, but the last time I looked, she was expressing her frustration, I guess, with Jay-Z. And this is centered around the idea that, they all had stake in Tidal at one point. She had a 3% stake, according to what she was saying. Jay-Z eventually sold Tidal for $302 million. And so Nicki is stating that she never got her fair portion, and instead somebody just offered her $1 million. So she's been kind of going about that. Now, the different reports are showcasing that if that's the case, as far as the 3%, if that's true, then she should be getting anywhere between $8 and $9 million for the sale of Tidal. Now, she's claiming she's owed like $100 million. I don't know where the numbers come from. Nicki fans, y'all can expound on that. I'm just going to say this because she's been on social media, putting everything out there. Very interesting to watch from the outside looking in. Like I said, I don't really follow her a lot. I think she makes fun music. I didn't go to the Pink, I was about to say Pink Friday 2 tour, but I did enjoy the clips that I saw of when she had the fans trying to sing like "The Night Is Still Young," and if they couldn't sing, she snatched the mic back. I thought that was really funny. Her personality, I think, comes out on stage as far as the fun side. But I will say this: I do believe the industry does burn a lot of people, and I think when you've been a part of something that's so chaotic and dark, it does definitely affect your psyche to an extent. But I'll say for Nicki's situation, if everything that she's putting out there is true, then take it to the courts. Bringing everything to Twitter doesn't really help a lot, in my opinion. Twitter is for when you're trying to change public opinion. Twitter to me muddies the waters and kind of gets things in the way. And my thing is, okay, if somebody owed me millions of dollars or $100 million, I'm gonna have every document lined up, ready, and to the courts. And maybe she's doing that. Maybe she's moving in silence, but maybe not, because that's what Twitter's saying the opposite. I just think personally, and I'm not a doctor, I think there's some things that are beyond what is normal for her, if you catch my drift. I think she's coming into a threshold where I don't think she's well. That's me. I hope she can find her joy again, because like I said, I think she's fun to watch when she has the fun personality and does the fun stuff. But it just, the whole Jay-Z Rock Nation thing that I keep seeing every time I see her, I'm like, okay, just take it to the courts, please, please. Let me read the chats, because somebody out here probably got a better scoop than what I got. I just I don't know, but I really think the industry does really mess up a lot of folks. And what I saw from the long, extensive tweets and that I did read before I started this video reminds me so much. And I kind of talked about this person before, but somebody personal that I knew that started battling mental health issues to the point where we no longer really deal with each other, and it's more so just out of my own well-being, because they kind of battle with schizophrenia. I'm not going to say that's what Nicki might be battling with, but a lot of people that have schizophrenia start creating things that may not necessarily have happened. I'm not saying that about Nicki, but to that point, that friend, stuff started happening in their mind that they really believed happened. For them, they were convinced that we were all on campus at Howard and that they got jumped and that all of us were out there watching and recording, and then that this recording found its way on social media and went viral on Facebook, and millions of people saw this person get jumped, and they had convinced themselves that this happened. And I had noticed in the later years that we didn't live in the same, they lived in another state. I think some other things also happened with them at the same time, but in those later conversations, I'd always end up getting cussed out in the conversation out of nowhere, because they'd be like, when are you gonna, you need to take the video down. I'm like, video are you talking about? Now, mind you, as they're saying that this jumpation has taken place at Howard, this is 10 years after we've been out of undergrad. Like, this is like 2018 or something, or 8 years out of undergrad. Like, I'm like, mind you, people that go to Howard don't all live in DC. I feel like I'm an anomaly. Most folks that go to Howard go back either home or to another place. Maybe 10-15% of people still live in DC. So I'm one of the few that stay. But in their mind, all however many hundreds of us are still here and on campus, and so they can't help it. Like, when they're on their meds and stuff, they're good. They personally made the choice to not take the meds anymore, so I had to kind of pull it back, because they start making crazy accusations. And if you see their social media, it mirrors to an extent what I'm seeing with Nicki. I'm not diagnosing her with anything, so don't take it that way. I'm just telling you the pattern I see when I look at their social media, because every now and then I just check to make sure they're alive, because you still care about people. Every post is like these just paragraphs of all these different people. And it's like every person that they can remember from undergrad, there's all these accusations. Like, this person tried to do this and that person tried. Even the cook at the cafeteria, everybody. And I'm like, something is, wow. And so I don't think that's Nicki, but I think something is off. Something, if you read all those, you can tell something is not right. So I hope she is good. I hope there are some people around her who actually care about her, and they're not people that are just kind of sucking her dry or taking her resources. But who knows? We'll see how this goes. Anyway, let's read this chat. Where are we at? Katie did too said, life goes by faster the older you get. It does feel like that. Especially the last 10 years. I'm like, that's crazy. Like, the last 10 years feel like 3 or 4. Somebody said, I thought you were Kendrick. Good night. I keep getting that. I don't see it. I don't know if we're just because we're both like two smaller framed guys that have hair. I don't see the Kendrick comparison, but I'll take it. Hell, Kendrick I saw the single was just certified diamond. So, okay, I'll take it. Right? Maybe I need to put out a new music video and they'll think it's Kendrick and they'll actually go watch it. Yeah, let's see. Somebody said Nicki's been showing shade towards Meg Thee Stallion today. Well, they always going back at it. That's they got diss tracks. Let's see. Waldo Faldo 99 said the Dems could win if they give us something to vote for instead of saying the other candidate is bad. The candidate should offer tangible policies. Asking voters to settle will lead to more Trumps. Now, that is something I had been saying for a good minute. Like the idea of we're not them doesn't work anymore. And this is just politics in general. Something that has annoyed me, because even when people do the both parties are the same argument, I don't even agree with that anymore. I think that argument worked up until 2016 when it was evident that both parties were really centered on the idea of wealth and money. But we've seen that at this point, one party is actively destroying the country with no shame. They're putting crooks in everything to just do whatever. The other party, I don't know what they're doing, but they're not the same to me. And I think it's a cop-out argument because for me, when you start putting the policies next to each other, you see the contrast of what both parties are offering. And I think with politics, it constantly is something that evolves. So just like I said in the summer, if you're still coming on here with 2016 talking points, that doesn't work in 2025 because we're in a different space. This is why I think a lot of Democrats look really foolish right now, because even when it comes to conversations around Israel or even stuff that's happening with the New York mayoral race, some of these viewpoints and perspectives that some of the leadership in the Democratic Party have right now, they still have these 2016 talking points that don't work in 2025, and it's turning a lot of people off. You see Hakeem Jeffries is catching it as of late, right? Because it's like you're still moving like the old guard. Stuff has changed after January. Well, really, you had a different era with Trump's first term, but things were still to an extent like the old guard, but just with a new face. Because at least in that point in time, Trump wasn't surrounded by yes men. He has yes men now. And even if we go to the Biden era is during the era of coming out of COVID, the uprisings that took place after 2020 with police brutality and everything. Like there was just changes and pivots taking place. And then out of nowhere, boom, here comes the Ukraine stuff. Boom, here comes Israel, Gaza. Things keep changing and changing and changing. And so when you're still using talking points from years ago that don't really quite fit the mold, I think it ages people out. And I think for Democrats, the whole we're not Trump doesn't work because clearly he got reelected. So that doesn't work. You got to give something else, right? And again, my frustration with Democrats does not give a pass for Republicans to continue the nonsense that they're doing. So don't take that as an endorsement for any of this nonsense that Republicans have going either. All right. Anyway, Natural Empress. I have no cat in this fight. That's me as far as the Nicki stuff. I don't know enough to be really locked in. People are still on Twitter X. I'm on everything. The annoying part is I need everybody to get off and jump to one of the other ones so we can all go, right? Lord, but no, as far as having like this platform, I'm on everything so I can kind of keep my eye and ear to the streets with everything. So yeah, I think Twitter's gonna push Elon out at some point too, right? But Twitter is hell on earth now. It's not even enjoyable. Tyler said he's been told he looks like Prince. Nerdlard said your perception of time changes as you age. It's a psychological response to aging. And I think that, yeah, that makes sense because I think back to like when I was little, when I was like 5, 6, 7. So the TV in my room, I had my dad's old TV that because I told you he's frugal. I had his old TV that he had when he was still stationed. I don't even remember where he was stationed, somewhere outside of the US. But it was this old TV where it was like about this big. On the sides were like wooden panels, and it had 15 buttons, right? And it didn't have cable because it had the rabbit ears. So I only had like basic cable channels plus PBS, right? And so the other problem was he put my TV up really high on the shelf, so I couldn't get up there to change the channel. So I always kept it on Q13 Fox, which was like 13, because I knew that The Simpsons came on at 7 o'clock. And so the way that the times went, this has to be like 94-ish, maybe, right? The local news came on at 5. and then at 6 o'clock, MASH came on, right? And then The Simpsons. And so I remember when I was little, we normally had dinner at like 5 o'clock. We always ate at the table as a family, so we'd always have dinner at 5 o'clock or 5:30 ish. And long story short, by the time we'd finish dinner or whatever else, and I'd go to my room because maybe I'm playing with Legos, it was always about 6:30. And I remember looking at that clock, and that 30 minutes from 6:30 to 7 so I could watch The Simpsons, I swear it used to take so long. I was like, God, this is the longest 30 minutes. Like, man, I would have built a house with the Legos. I didn't, maybe I filled up a bucket of water and put maybe I made a boat out of Legos too, and I got it floating and everything. I've done all this stuff, and I look at the clock and it's still like 6:50. And now, right, I think to like when you're asleep and you got to get up early to go to work. And I normally, if I have to go to the office, I get up at 7:15, which is actually not that early, but I don't like getting up early anyway. But I know if I'm sleeping, let's just say for some reason I crack my eyes at like 6:50 on accident or something. Or no, I'll say 6:45. That's 30 minutes before 7:15. It's like you'll crack your eye at 6:45 because you got to go to the bathroom or something, and then you go back to sleep. And before you close your eyes at 7:15, I'm like, that was the fastest 30 minutes. I think it also has to do with like if you got to do something you don't want to do. Because then I know sometimes if I'm at work, time goes by really slow before lunch. Something about after eating, time flies. But I don't know. I just need time to slow down. I want to enjoy and bask in all these moments in life. And it makes me nervous because I'm getting to that threshold where I'm going to have to start experiencing more transitions as people who are getting older start transitioning out. And I don't like that part. So yeah. Anyway. Faldo99 says 60,000 people die every year from lack of health insurance. If the Dems support Medicare for all, they gain massive votes, but their donors put a stop to it. I will say, I think we also, unfortunately, there's not enough public buy-in in the United States when it comes to voter participation. For the United States to be as advanced as it is, we have a very low voter turnout. I know people say, well, you got to get people excited to turn out. But I think when it comes to the conversation of harm reduction, people should just already feel like it's not even their civic duty, but at least to cover their own behind and make sure that they're still good, that should be motivation enough to, even if you're not excited about something, that you vote against something that you think is detrimental. And it scares me that people aren't even motivated to do that. But the other thing too, I'm like, there are, I want to say 200 million Americans that would be eligible to vote, so on and so forth. I'm like, that's more than enough people to really go and shake the table, especially with some of these parties. And I think the donors just carry so much weight, which is why I always say money needs to be taken out of politics. Either that, or if you're going to have like money in politics, it has to be regulated where everybody gets exactly the same thing. So everybody has the same budget for marketing. Everybody has the same budget for events, everything. That way you can't buy out candidates. You can't, and there needs to be a line item with that. Like where candidates, I feel like bribes and all the other stuff have to be kind of cut out. Even though technically you can't do it on paper, but they do it. I think once the money's out of politics, it makes things better. But yeah, I think there's so much that could be done. I just think everybody keeps getting it wrong every year, every election cycle. I think candidates offer some offer some great things, but overall, systemically, our politics is a mess. Freaking sucks. Somebody said, somebody 484 Berkshire said, the older you get, the smaller a portion of your life each day, month / year takes up. So it makes time feel like it goes faster the older you get. That's the explanation I saw that makes sense. I just want time to, well, I guess we just got to live in the moment, y'all. Live in the moment, stop worrying about time, right? Because time is never going to stop. Thank you, Barry Addison. Gee, I did not talk about that. They said, did you discuss that Trump is nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize? Yes. Netanyahu, old killer Netanyahu, that killed all these people all in Gaza and everywhere else and is a terrible person, somehow was inspired to say, we need to nominate Orange Man for the Nobel Peace Prize. I said, y'all, all I'm gonna say is I really enjoyed the movie Law Abiding Citizen. I really enjoyed that movie a lot because, yeah, that's all I got. Okay. Somebody says you talk like you're 70. I don't think it's like that. I just think I've experienced a lot in life, and I think when you have so many experiences, it just when you look back on them, you realize how much has changed. Like I'm not acting like I have had like this amazing life, but I do think the experience of living abroad as a child, one, it makes you mature really quickly because you see the world very differently. But I've had a lot of interesting milestones. Like if we, you did all the bouncing around, but it's like, okay, in one life, I was a choreographer for some years, did all these competition teams. I've done stand-up comedy for some years. We have the YouTube. Actually, the YouTube channel just turned 15, but that's because we weren't making YouTube videos. It was actually I've talked about this a million times, but when I still taught dance, the YouTube channel, I put the classes on that as an unlisted link. But as far as like Calvin Michaels making videos, that was until like 2010, 2011. But anyway, yeah, you've done all that different stuff. You have the Howard undergrad years, you got the years with the kids, you got the years in the current job. Now we're doing film. You got four albums in. It's like so much goes on, and it's like while you're in the moment, you don't realize how much time has passed. So that's kind of how I see it. I still feel physically or like internally, I don't feel that I'm my age. I still feel like I'm like 27 or 26 in the head, and I'd be like, add about 10 years of that. But yeah. Plus, I was always an old soul to begin with. I spent a lot of time around all the older adults, right? And my father was such an old soul himself. So was my mother. So I just get it from them. Let's see. Okay, so that's all my big topics, I believe. So we can just chop it up for a little bit before I call it a night. I just want to scroll up my notes here, make sure I got everything. Yep, perfect. Okay. Let's see. Am I ever getting married and having kids? It'll be nice, but the way the world's going, it ain't the first thing on my list at the moment. Plus, I've been having such a great time the last like 2 or 3 years. I don't know who would put up with me bouncing around from city to country all the time, having to do lives. I'm trying to picture like doing a live and I got like a newborn in the other room and the newborn is crying. And I'm like, well, I can't go out there. I'm on live right now. I can't see that happen. That would not happen. Y'all probably wouldn't see me no more once I have kids, at least until they're like in school. I think of like when I do studio sessions, if I'm doing music, I may start at 8 p.m. and not stop until 3 a.m. Now, I do know like with relationships and stuff, you kind of adjust with people that you really are crazy over. By the way, all of this is discussed in all my music, so I don't know why we're asking. You go and listen to the After Yesterday album, and the last songs on Before Tomorrow tell you a whole lot. But yeah, anyway, somebody said, Calvin, I miss your old background. It was more inviting. I do miss the books, but the books are in storage. I have no books to give you. So yeah, I don't live in that spot anymore. Oh, I told you guys that building tried it. Did I tell that on the last live? Where they were, I moved out of that spot in March, and then they sent me a email 3 or 4 weeks ago, like, hey, when are you going to pay your outstanding fees? Now, mind you, when I moved out the building, I've already listen. I don't play about like moving out stuff. I make sure everything's right. Like, apartment was cleaned. I record, every room and everything like that. Everything was good to go. Out of there, ain't heard from these people. Then out of nowhere, they're like, "Oh yeah, were you gonna pay your additional fees?" I'm like, "What fees are you talking about?" I even sent them the email that they sent me saying there's no additional fees. Thank you for being a great tenant. And they're like, "Oh no, there was an inspection we did on April 28th." Now to give some dates, I moved out of my spot on March 11th, I think, right? And they were like, "Oh, well, we did an inspection on April 28th, and there was there was all these problems and damages to the walls and stuff." And I'm like, no, it wasn't. Because, so I sent them like the video that I took. I sent them the emails of everything that they had. And then they're like, oh no. So they sent me some form. And this form had all these kind of charges and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait a minute. So of course, we look up DC law. And I'm like, I moved out in March 11th. With DC law, you have to do the inspection within like, I think 3 days. It's April 28th. Actually, no, it wasn't. They did their inspection on like April 28th or something, and then I didn't find out about anything till June. And so, long story short, my friend Whitney already kind of does this kind of work as far as like management with like properties and all that other stuff. And so she was like, no, this is not law, da 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 da. She went and typed up some crazy stuff. I just gave it to the people. Next thing you know, they're like, oh, we're so sorry. We actually, this was something totally unrelated. There was a leak that took place and damaged the sun when we had no idea. So this is not when you were so sorry. Da, 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 da. It's like, okay, yeah, play with somebody else, right? Not to charge. Like, if I haven't lived there in a month, almost a month and a half, you can't charge me for something from an inspection because anything could have happened in that month and a half. It just tells me that ain't nobody moved in there since I moved out because the building was crooked. Tried it. So yeah. Let's see. Somebody said Calvin is very mature for his age. That's why I enjoy watching your podcast. I'm 65. You have a very bright young mind. Thank you. See, young people, I still got some youth in me. Just enough. Look, I don't even have no gray hair yet. Okay, that's all that's black. Ain't no gray up in there. Not even any thinning. Look how thick that is. All right. And so somebody said you've had very diverse experiences in your life. Yeah, I'm grateful for that. I guess that's why I was really passionate about working with the kids. I wanted them to have like similar experiences, which is why you should listen to the podcast about working with the kids. Let's see. This has been a fun live. I didn't know how this one was gonna go because there was a lot of heavy stuff. Nerd Large, I think I saw your comment where you said I watched your review of Book of Negroes from 10 years ago last week. You were way too harsh. I had to go back and watch the review to see what I said, but I made my own self laugh because then I remember thinking back. In that series, there's this part where, again, Book of Negroes, it's like they kidnap the people and they have them on a slave ship and everything. But there's a part where they're about to sabotage the ship. But before that, they're having a party on a ship. And it's the weirdest thing because you have all the people who have captured all these people from the continent and now they're enslaved on the boat. So it's these white men who, pillaged and killed all these people, but they're having a party on the boat. So then the actual people who've been kidnapped are on the party. I said, what kind? And this one girl just rolling. I'm like, wait, whoa. What kind of slave ship is this? Like, I died because I just randomly, I don't get to see all the comments, but when I got the notification, I was like, what video are they commenting on? I didn't even remember doing a review for it. So I went back to go watch it. I was like, oh, Calvin, you stupid. But I'd have to go back and watch it. I haven't watched Book of Negroes since I did the review on it. So I don't even remember what happened in it. But I do remember that dance scene. That's funny. Somebody said there's a married YouTuber with a kid that goes live every night around midnight. His wife is super chill. It makes me think of I was like, Kevin on Stage, but his kids are older now, so that works. But yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Somebody said, "Damn to the scammer." Shout out to Whitney for checking the property manager. And then, like, mind you, the whole thing was, I felt bad, but it was an intern that had sent the email and everything else. And so I was like, okay, and I'm trying to not be rude because I'm like, yeah, I know you're excited for the job and all, but they gave you the wrong information because I don't owe anything to this building. Like, if there's one thing, you guys even you remember, like, anytime you saw me do the live, whether it was like in the living room with the blue couch in the back, or even if I sat in front of the books for pre-made videos, you ain't ever seen my place look junky. My place has always been clean every time you see me. So don't play and act like I was over there. Man, they pissed me off so bad with that. But anyway. April Williams said, what are your thoughts on Diddy? I talked about him at the beginning of the video. So once I get off of this and stop running my mouth, I'll put the timestamps and there will be the Diddy segment. Somebody said, I honestly feel like this back and forth with Trump and Elon is a show because they, I guess it's saying like each other. Now they hate each other. It's so odd, makes you wonder what they're up to. So I think it's ego. You have two powerful people with a lot of ego. And this is where there's that challenge of power. Elon's power comes from his wealth. Orange Man's power comes from who he is at the moment as far as leader of the free world, right? And so battle of who's going to, they're playing a game of chicken at the moment. They go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I don't think it's planned. I really think they just see each other for how they see each other. They will utilize and use each other for what they can get. And when things don't go right, then they drag each other and mudsling. Because yeah, somebody like Orange Man who really has nothing to lose because there's nobody to check him at the moment. And the same kind of goes for Elon. The only thing that they can do is really throw the worst of the worst of the worst of things that they can at each other. So Elon will say, yeah, Orange Man's on the Epstein list. And Orange Man will say, well, I'm going to deport Elon. And even if Elon got deported, he'd be like, okay, I can live anywhere. I'm a billionaire. Like, so I just think that they got a lot going on. But hopefully, like I said, put them in a room with box cutters and let them go at it. Somebody said, we would tolerate the baby. That's please. Give me like 2-3 more years. It's not in the plan right now. Not now. There's a few other things I really want to do before that comes into the play or into the picture. Somebody said your resident baby boomer just joining. A whole lot going on. What up, Miss Jackson? All right, so we got a few more minutes before I get off. So I'm just want to make sure I covered everything. I think I already did. Make sure I didn't leave anything. I've been paying attention as well to the strike in Philly. Shout out to Jasmine Sullivan and LL Cool J for standing with the workers. I thought that was very commendable. It's also because that really is a gamble as an entertainer when you pull out of these festivals because they can sue and everything for breach of contract. But I think it was very noble that they would align themselves with the struggle of those who are trying to enrich and have a better experience based on the services that they provide the city of Philadelphia as far as the municipal workers. So kudos to them. Somebody said I missed it. What happened with Carnival Cruise? I think is that what them banning the fans? Where them fans at? I mean, I've never been on a cruise, so I wouldn't know. But I guess find another cruise outlet. These companies start making laws that feel a little discriminatory and make it feel like you're not invited, go somewhere else. I don't go to any spaces that I don't feel welcome in. Like, that's why I'm not pressed to sit at every table. I know there's always that conversation. We want to sit at the table. We want to sit at the table. I'm not trying to be at every table because every table ain't got something good on it. You ever been to somebody's house and the food nasty? It's the same thing with some of these tables we want to get into, with some of these corporations or rubbing elbows with some of these businesses. Everything is not for us, and it's perfectly fine. We don't got to be in every space because sometimes let corrupt folks enjoy their corruption, right? Like, imagine had you got a seat at the table at the Diddy parties and everything, and even if you didn't do anything, now your name is implicated because maybe you had to be the person to provide stuff. So, yeah. He said no hip hop music. What up, Scotty Films? Yeah, LL Cool J, we've come a long way because I think the first time I ever had a video that got more than like 30,000 views was when I had to drag him and Brad Paisley over that Accidental Racist song where LL was like, if you forget about, what did he say? If you forget about my gold chain, I'll forget about the slave chains. So what you just say? I don't even think that video's up anymore. But boy, that was a time there. I was hot. What? Somebody said they're gagging over Alex Jones, crying over Orange Man burying the Epstein list. I didn't know that part. I know Alex Jones is dealing with all the bankruptcy and having to not have any money. I haven't really been following him for a minute, so I don't know what they have left. But okay. All right. It's time to get off this, y'all. This has been fun. I don't even think that Brad Paisley LL Cool J video is up anymore. Every now and then I'll skim through the channel and kind of start taking down older videos that I'm like, because there's probably something in it that I didn't like that I said. So I'm like, yeah, I can start unlisting some videos. So yeah, there's that. Somebody said, how do you go on vacation and fist fight at sea? I don't know, but I won't be fighting on no cruise ship. It'd be just my luck I'll fall over the rail. So nope. Anyway, this has been dope. Like I said, tomorrow, I'm live tomorrow, but it's not a traditional live. It's me and my writing partner as we're working on some of the stuff that we've been doing with the actual TV idea we've been working on. So that's tomorrow. So if you would like to join in, go ahead. It's not going to be how we're interacting here. It's really you just kind of watching us converse and share ideas and fuss and do all that kind of stuff. And so you're free to watch. And then the next In the News comes out Sunday. If it doesn't come out Sunday, it'll be out on Monday. But I already wrote down Sunday, so I got to make Sunday happen. As far as Comedically Hardheaded, the podcast, the episode is already out. The next one I want to have out before my birthday. So that gives me about 3 weeks before the next one, only because I didn't realize I took 5 months in between episodes. And so I do keep leaving y'all on cliffhangers, and then you got to wait half a year. So we're going to rack it up. All right. Anyway, I'm out, folks. Stay safe, stay sane, mind your business so that you can age well. Apologies for some of the glitches, and we'll work our way through it until we get it right. Anyway, I'm out, folks. Good night.